Thank you very much, Berna. Good afternoon, members, officers and members of the public. Welcome to the Joint Standards Committee meeting on Thursday, 3rd of September 2020. My name is Councillor Michael Helm and I am Chairman of this committee. The meeting is held under new regulations which came into effect on the 4th of April in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. There are just a few housekeeping issues to run through. First of all, please could I ask everyone present in this meeting to ensure your microphone remains muted and your video feed is off when not addressing the committee. This will reduce background noise and avoid any unintentional disturbance. The meeting is being hosted remotely, streamed live and recorded, and by being present in the meeting, you are giving your consent to being recorded. Members and officers, during this item, please use the chat function of the meeting to indicate if you wish to speak. I will then invite you at the appropriate time. Members are reminded that apart from indicating you wish to speak or that you have to leave the meeting, the chat function should not be used for questions or any other purpose. And members, do not speak over each other, please. Members, when speaking and referring to agenda paper, please reference the page, paragraph number and keep your contributions as clear and concise as possible. When invited to speak, please ensure you turn on your microphone and video. Now I may ask the officers taking part in the meeting to introduce themselves, starting with Mr. Quelch.
Thank you, Chairman. Simon Quelch, and I'm the monitoring officer.
Berna?
Good afternoon, members. Berna Casey, clerk to today's committee. Thank you.
Is there anybody else present?
No, I don't believe there are any other officers present, Chairman.
Okay. Berna, if you can now carry out the roll call of members to confirm who's in attendance, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Members, I will take you through the attendance list in alphabetical order. Councillor Bassinger.
Good afternoon, Berna. I'm present.
Thank you. Councillor Channer.
Good afternoon. Sorry, just had a bit of trouble getting unmuted rather. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Helm is present. Thank you.
Yes.
Councillor Jarvis.
Afternoon, Berna, present.
Thank you. Councillor Keys.
Good afternoon, Berna, present.
Thank you. Councillor Mays.
Present, Berna. Good afternoon.
Councillor Nunn.
Yes, hello, Berna. I'm here.
Thank you. Councillor Stamp.
Present, Berna.
Thank you. Councillor Stilts.
Good afternoon, I'm present.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
Is that all? No, Mr. Hodgson isn't present, I take it?
No, the independent person is not present. No, he would have been part of the office list.
May I have apologies for absence, please, Berna?
Yes, we've received apologies for absence from Councillor Thompson, and Councillor Keys is substituting for her today.
Yes, I've got that. Thank you very much, Berna. Disclose the existence and nature of any disclosure of pecuniary interest, other pecuniary interest and non-pecuniary interest relating to items of business on the agenda having regard to paragraphs 6 to 8 inclusive of the Code of Conduct for members. Members are reminded that they are also required to disclose any such interests as soon as they become aware, should the need arise throughout the meeting. If any member has an interest to declare, please use the chat function now to indicate and I will invite them to speak. Berna, is there anyone who wishes to declare anything?
And not at the moment, Chairman.
Okay.
I just need to check because no, I've nobody in the chat feed. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you for that. Item 4, Standards Complaint, Councillor Chrissy Morris. We'll move to item 4, Standards Complaint, Chrissy Morris, found on pages 5 to 44. In a moment, I will call on the lead legal specialist and monitoring officer to present the report. Members are reminded that if you wish to speak, please make it be known using the chat function within the meeting. I will then come to you in turn. Please keep your points clear and concise. Mr. Quelch, can you present the report, please?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes. Now,
apologies. Sorry. Mr. Quelch, could we just check it, for members who are actually in attendance as well, please?
Oh, yes.
Apologies, I overlooked that.
And I overlooked it as well, sorry. Are there any other members in attendance?
Yes,
Councillor
Councillor Bamford.
And Councillor Siddle.
Thank you very much.
And Councillor Lagan.
Well, yeah, I'll mention it to this afternoon.
Councillor Lack.
Thank you very much. I apologise.
Councillor Hull, that's great. Thank you very much, members.
Okay.
Chairman, before Mr. Quelch is allowed to speak, could I ask a question that I think is relevant for the beginning of the meeting, please, Chairman?
Yes, of course you may.
Thank you. Could I ask the monitoring officer before the meeting starts, I might have missed it, but where is the letter of complaint made by the member of the public, which is important to this hearing? I haven't got it in my pack, please, Chairman. I just wanted to be clear. I haven't got it. Thank you.
Simon, can you answer that question, please?
Yeah, thanks, Chairman. That relates to obviously Mr. Jennings' report. What he's done is, rather than appending the letter, he has actually recited the letter at paragraph 1.2 of his report, which is Appendix 2, page 42 on the bundle. He sets out the aspects of behaviour that Mr. Kelly was complaining about.
Chairman, can I come back? Yes, I've got that, but I really think it's important if a member of the public has complained, all the details could be redacted. We need to see what was written, because there could be other things on that complaint. No disrespect to any monitoring officer, and I'm not putting any disparaging comments forward, Chairman. I just want this to be right and proper, and that is my concern. We haven't got that written complaint from the complainant. Thank you, Chairman. I'll be quiet now, but thank you for allowing me.
That's no problem at all. Simon, can you explain that, or can we have that produced?
Yes, I mean, there's no requirement for. There was no requirement for Mr. Jennings to append that, but I can look now in my file to see what that letter says, and I can read it to members if they want me to. If you can give me a minute or two to find it.
Okay.
Yes, please.
Yes. If you could just wait one moment then, Chairman, I'm sorry.
That's all right. No problem at all, Simon.
Chairman, I have that letter in front of me. I can read it out now, or I can read it out later, whichever you prefer.
I think it's probably better read out later when we get to that part of the agenda. Is that all right with members?
Yep. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Right.
that's fine. Thank you.
Right. If we now move on to your report, please, Simon.
Okay, there are in fact, Chairman, two investigations and based on two quite separate complaint letters. So, Chairman, would you like me just to deal with the report, the first report, and then do members want to ask questions and debate it? Or, Chairman, do you want me to deal with both reports at the same time?
I think we should do one at a time, if that's all right with members. Is that all right?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Okay, we'll do one at a time, Simon.
That Chairman will probably mean that Councillor Morris will need obviously to have two opportunities to speak to each particular report.
Yes.
So dealing with the first complaint, Appendix 1 of your bundle, and it's starting at page 7. in your pack. This is a complaint by Councillor Dewick, and I've actually appended his letter, dated it's an email dated the 27th of November last year. So members can also see not only the nature of the complaint, but if you go to page 11, you will see in the ultimate paragraph how he viewed Councillor Morris's behaviour and obviously why he made the complaint. The complaint relates, in fact, is twofold. The first one relates to the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, where Councillor Morris didn't actually appear at that committee as a councillor. I think he presented himself as Mr. Morris, or he was certainly presented as Mr. Morris. And I believe he was seeking to be there as a member of the public and was not representing himself as a councillor. Now, there is an issue in relation to that. You may say, well, Councillor Morris was a councillor. I don't think in all respects, at any committee meeting, I don't quite view it like that. I believe that Councillor Morris was actually deliberately presenting himself as a member of the public and asking for a right to speak as a member of the public. And in my view, therefore, that particular complaint, I don't think is within the jurisdiction of the Code of Conduct and the Localism Act. My view is that that should be dismissed, that particular part of the complaint. And that's why I didn't investigate it further. Then that comes to the second part, which I do believe is engaged as far as the code is concerned. And that relates to Councillor Morris's behaviour on the 3rd of October and the 21st of November last year. And in it, you've got annexes 2 and 3 that actually set out verbatim how those two meetings went. So members can see for themselves the flow of the meeting and at what point Councillor Morris spoke, at what point the chairman spoke, and the reactions of both. Now, but what I have done is at paragraph 5 on page 7, you'll see that I've tried to summarise what actually happened, which I hope you find helpful. If not, then just disregard it and rely on your reading of annexes 2 and 3. And you'll see there my summary of both meetings, in fact, is because I'm viewing them together as a sort of a continuing form of conduct. Councillor Morris repeatedly spoke over the chairman at both meetings. The chairman stood on one occasion in October and 4 times in November. And members will understand the significance of that because of what I set out at paragraph 9, which sets out the different rules in our constitution. Whenever the chairman rises during a debate, a member then standing shall resume his seat and the council shall be silent. That's mandatory. Constitution is saying that must happen. There is no discretion in a member to say, I will or I won't. It is mandated by the Constitution. Continuing, at both meetings, resolutions were passed that Councillor Morris should no longer be heard, that were both proposed by the chairman. Councillor Morris spoke after the resolution, insisting that he could speak despite the chairman stating that he needed to be quiet. And then in October, and this only relates to the October meeting, Councillor Morris refused to leave the chamber at the request of the chairman. And then finally, the chairman prematurely closed the October meeting and threatened to close the November meeting, although he did not close the November meeting. I interviewed Councillor Morris in my office, and I have to say Councillor Morris was very cooperative. Although Councillor Morris denied all the allegations that were made, He denied disrespect. And in fact, he felt he was the victim. He felt he was disrespected. And he felt that the meeting was closed not because of his behaviour, but because of the conduct of the chairman. I have to say, Councillor Morris was respectful during that interview. He cooperated fully with the investigation, but in summary, he denied completely that he was responsible for any of the matters that Councillor Jewett was complaining about. You'll see my conclusion, and in my conclusion, I've made some extra remarks which for you to consider, and that is that I think that although Councillor Morris sincerely believed that he was the wronged person, which is what he said in interview, and I accept that he sincerely believed that, Councillor Morris focuses, in my view, he was focusing in the interview more on his rights and seemed to be unaware of his responsibilities that a councillor has to abide by the Constitution. And I made the point in my report that if every councillor decided to interpret the Constitution as they thought, then we'd have 31 different versions of it, and there would be no opportunity for democracy to take place, because every councillor would behave just as they pleased, whenever they pleased. I felt that Councillor Morris was unaware of his responsibilities, but supremely aware of his rights. I concluded, you see my conclusion, paragraphs 13 and 14 on page 9, that he failed to treat the chairman with respect, and that his behaviour could reasonably be regarded as bringing his office or the authority into disrepute. Just one little correction, paragraph 10, that should read 3.2, not 3.1, typing error. I put in some sanctions as well. I know that's not normally done. Members might prefer just to go to my report itself, not this investigation. I've tried to tailor that to this particular situation, so that's why it's slightly different from my report, because I've tried to be investigation specific. That's really all I want to say at the moment, Chairman.
You want to? Thank you. I now invite Councillor Morris to ask any questions of clarification you may have of the monitoring officer. Councillor Morris.
Thank you very much. It's about time too. There's a couple of procedural questions that I'd like to ask Simon. The first one would be that for many years, the Joint Standards Committee has been running unlawfully. Is that correct?
Unlawfully in the sense that parish councillors were allowed to vote.
Simple question. In the report that came from this, it was found that the Joint Standards Committee had been operating unlawfully, not illegally, unlawfully for many years. Is that correct? A simple yes or no answer, because I understand we have time restraints.
I don't understand the difference between unlawful and illegal.
Lawyer, let's just stick with it so that you don't muddy the waters any further.
The answer is that the council for many years was operating. The council.
Excuse me, I'm speaking. I'm the councillor. You're the officer. I'm asking you the questions. I didn't interrupt you. Please don't interrupt me. Now, simply put, yes or no answer will suffice because of time restraints. Has the Joint Standards Committee been operating unlawfully for years? Yes or no, please.
Chairman, this is not about a fight at all. So, Chairman, I've been asked that question.
If I may,
I'm not answering the question.
This isn't to do with the report here or anything to do with it. Something else you're doing.
It
Can
is
you
to do the
build it
report here.
up,
It's to do
Mr. Morris,
questions
please?
of the Joint Standards Committee. Now, I've asked a simple question because in the report, it was stated that the Joint Standards Committee has been operating unlawfully for years. I would like to know if it's been operating unlawfully for years, why, who was liable for it, who is responsible for it running unlawfully, and is it running unlawfully now? Because I have some concerns. So if I can get my answers, if I can get my questions answered quite simply, we'll be able to get through this quite quickly. So yet again, I'll put it to Simon Quelch. Simon, has this Joint Standards Committee been operating unlawfully for years? Yes or no, please?
Well, if you want to put it like that, yes, it has, and no, it's not.
Oh, well, yes, it has is enough, because in the report it did state that, and you've agreed that with me privately on the phone.
Yes.
So
yes,
it's been
that's correct.
operating unlawfully for years. Whose responsibility was that? Who's liable for that?
Well, the monitoring officer before me and me.
So you are responsible for the Joint Standards Committee running unlawfully for years.
I came in 2000, and I think I became monitoring officer in 2018. I understand it had been operating like that for a number of years. That was then brought to my attention by an investigator, and the matter is now corrected, and we now have a lawful Joint Standards Committee.
Right, so now it's lawful. Okay. So I'd like to know, did the council not put a resolution forward for this committee to be politically balanced? Yes or no answer, please.
I understood that on the 22nd of June, the council resolved that political balance should not apply. It disapplied the political balance provisions.
Okay. Let's move on. Because I don't believe that it's now politically balanced, but there you go. Which is against the council resolution. Can I ask, where is Councillor John Anderson, please? Is he resigned?
Councillor Anderson is no longer a part of this committee because he resigned.
And did he resign because he failed to disclose that he was a Conservative Party member?
Chairman, I through you, I don't know how relevant these questions are to this report.
These are not relevant, I'm afraid. Councillor Morris.
Well, I think relevant, and I'm asking,
please.
I want to know that this is going procedurally correct. So, where is the independent person, considering that he could make this morning's meeting, but he couldn't make this one?
Yes, yeah. He's given his apologies. He is otherwise engaged. I tried to get one of the reserves, but was unable to do so. The independent person's presence is not required by the Localism Act, and he has submitted, as you know, Councillor Morris, his views in writing, which has already been passed to all members of this committee, and I can read those out. So his views on the report are available to members.
I'm not asking for his views, I'm asking where he was. Obviously his bottle's gone.
Councillor Morris, it's not a way to speak to anybody.
Standards meeting. There was no independent person, and you didn't give that information. You didn't disclose that information to the committee. Is that correct? Is that correct procedure that if an independent person cannot make a meeting and isn't asked for their views, that you don't tell anyone? Is that
I'm sorry, Chairman, I don't know how relevant this is to. I thought the questions, Chairman, were meant to be relating to my report.
That is correct. Can you, Councillor Morris, can you confine yourself to the report, please?
I did say at the start of this, I have some concerns that procedure isn't being followed. The procedure hasn't been followed previously, and the procedure isn't being followed now. I have requested that all of my accusers and the witnesses were able to be questioned about the evidence that they have given, as is my common law right, if anyone wants to look it up, it's called the confrontation clause. Simon's going to come back and say this isn't a court, but if you'd like me to read them out, I've got numerous messages from Simon stating Article 6 of the European Convention for Human Rights, which states a fair trial. So when it suits the monitoring officer, he's talking about fair trials, and when it doesn't suit the monitoring officer, i.e. to produce the witnesses and the complainants against me, you know, it all seems to go out of the window. It doesn't seem very fair or just. So, Simon, let's just move on because, you know, time restraints and everything. Do you know, I find it quite bizarre because you're stating the member of the public that complained. How long have you known the member of the public that complained?
For many years. Councillor Dewick has been a councillor for many years. I know lots of councillors for many years.
You didn't hear me, did you? I said the member of the public that has complained.
Oh, sorry, I'm sorry. I thought we were talking about the first report, Councillor Morris. We're dealing with each report in turn.
I'd like to get this one out of the way now. How long have you known former Tory District Councillor Tom Kelly for?
We're not dealing with that report at the moment. We're dealing with the report.
Okay.
Please.
All right, I'll ask that one. I'll ask that one later on then.
Yes,
I'll ask
please.
that one later. Right. So, can I ask, is Malden District Council obliged to follow the European Convention of Human Rights?
Yes.
That one was for you, Chris Swain. Don't know much, do you? Right, so let's move on. How many councillors have concerns about your perceived biases, Mr. Quelch?
Chairman, this isn't about. This is not about me. This is about the report.
Yes.
They're biased. You are biased. You've written in the report.
Morris, I've asked you for clarifications you may have of the monitoring officer's report. Will you confine yourself to that, please?
What I would like to mention now is you being in the chair, because I believe you aren't competent enough to be in the chair. You didn't even know that Councillor Silks wasn't the independent person in the last meeting. You was calling the Councillor Stilts the independent person. You don't even know who's in the room. And
will you confine yourself to the report, please, Councillor Morris?
I find it strange that we've got someone that's dumber than Lou Ferrigno in the chair for this. You are Fluker's button.
That's another complaint.
So, going back to it. So, Mr. Quelch, are you maintaining that you was unaware, after being at Malden District Council for quite some time, that you was unaware of any of the bullying and the homophobic comments? Were you? Are you saying that you was completely unaware of all that?
I'm sorry, Councillor Morris. You were asked to ask questions of clarification on the monitoring officer report. The monitoring officer didn't report that.
I'm questioning his competence to do the report. He's run Joint Standards Committee unlawfully for years. He failed to tell the committee when the independent person wasn't even informed at the last Joint Standards Committee of 2019. I'm wondering whether or not that is incompetence or bias. He has questioned his impartiality.
Please, I'm
oh wow! I'm supposed to be scared of that, am I? Are you scared,
Councillor Morris?
You scared of the truth, Councillor Helms?
No, I'm not scared of anything, but you're going away from the report.
Look like you are. You look like you are. You can't even get the names of the people in the committee right. What are you doing in the chair? You are one.
Do you want Councillor Morris to be silent so I can get with this? Because he's straying far away from the report.
Then let me ask my questions and we'll get back on it.
confined to the report, please. Have you now finished, Councillor Morris? Can we move on?
No, I've got plenty, thank you. Was the report influenced by your bias towards the Conservative Party, Mr. Quelch?
No. That
You would say.
presupposes I have a bias towards the Conservative Party, which I do not.
I've made a complaint about that, haven't I? So you have got a complaint gone in about you being biased. You send out emails.
You need to confine yourself to the report.
Tell them to answer emails. That is not biased when they've cost this council thousands of pounds in investigations that they don't cooperate with. And when you confirm they don't cooperate,
Councillor Morris.
that email, that's it. You do all this rigmarole for me whistleblowing, but you'll just send an email out to someone that hasn't responded to your emails to tell them to respond to your emails. That's bias.
Members, I'm in a difficult situation here. Councillor Morris will not confine himself to the report and asking questions of the monitor officer. He's bringing other items in which are irrelevant to this meeting. I would ask that he be silent. Can I have a second, please?
Bias against me in a joint standards committee is not.
Chairman,
Knew about this. Where are they? Why aren't they in this meeting? Holmes Dodson knew about this. Where are they?
Councillor Channer.
Chairman, may I ask a question?
Yes, you may.
Councillor Morris isn't a member of this committee. He's here representing himself. Can we do what you request? That's what I want to do. Be sure about the process.
Can you reply to that, please?
Yes, I mean, Chairman, this is not a court hearing. This is a committee meeting. Councillor Morris is here to deal with the issues at hand. If you as a committee feel that he is hindering the transaction of business, namely dealing with these allegations, specific allegations, and you feel that that is interfering with the business of the committee, then you're entitled to ask him to no longer be heard. And if you feel he continues to persist, then Chairman, you can have him excluded from this committee meeting.
I feel that the Councillor is hindering this investigation. He's throwing away the report.
And I might take me off this, but it won't shut me up.
Councillor Channer, do you want to say anything?
Chairman, I can't hear a damn thing. I'm so sorry. I can't hear anything. All just a load of blurry.
Yes, exactly. What Councillor Morris said then, I didn't comprehend at all. But I am beginning to feel, Chairman, that I'm not a joint standards committee for Councillor Morris and complaints against him. I'm beginning to feel I'm over in scrutiny or something, because we are diverting way away from the report of Mr. Quelch's. And actually, I feel that Mr. Quelch is now becoming interrogated, and that is not the purpose of this committee, and we should not allow that to continue, Chairman. I feel quite strongly about that. Mr. Quelch is being put in a position where I believe he looks to be the victim, and he's been interrogated, I feel, which should not be occurring whatsoever at this committee. It's not the purpose of it, not with its terms of reference, and it's a point of order I'm making about the process, Chairman, and it's against some of our rules and articles.
Thank you, Councillor Chairman. I will ask
the bullying culture at MDC.
Morris to be quiet and be silenced. Does anyone want to second that motion?
I will second it unless Mr. Morris gives his assurance he will keep his questions only to the matter of the report. If he can't give that assurance, I will second that.
Can you give your assurance, please, Councillor Morris?
I'll give my assurance that I will speak my truth. Where I need to say something, I will say something. I have not been put into this office to be quieted. I have exposed, along with some other brave councillors, a bullying culture where threats and homophobia were right. I am a whistleblower. I have exposed this, and now you're trying to quieten me again. There are most of the councillors in this council are complicit.
Can we go to the vote, Bernard?
Chairman, I think we all need to be conscious that the sound is incredibly bad. Could we ask members to ensure that they have their microphones turned off when they're not partaking in the meeting to see if that will help in any way? Because it's very hard for anybody viewing the meeting or anything else to hear what the proceedings are. You want me to move to a vote to,
yes,
can you please repeat that, Chair? Can you please repeat your request, Chairman?
Silence, please.
And that was duly seconded.
Yes, I can.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. Members, I will take you in alphabetical order. Can you please state clearly for, against, abstain?
Point of order. Point of order. Councillor Channer didn't second it. She put a condition on that. So she needs to confirm that she's going to second that now.
Are you confirming that, Councillor Channer?
Well, because Councillor Morris, I did ask for assurances, and he said he is going to continue with his rights to be heard, that he believes he can do that. And I think actually that actually highlights a point in the monitoring officer's report where he said that he had, Councillor Morris had supreme knowledge of what his rights may be, but not about his responsibilities. And today is about some responsibilities. We're operating under the constitution of the council with this joint standards committee sitting. We have to apply the articles and rules of our constitution. The constitution has some mandatory things in it, Chairman, and I believe that actually I am going to support your request, Chairman, because actually Mr. Quelch is being interrogated, and I did not come onto this committee expecting to be seeing and witnessing Simon Quelch being interrogated. This was about a meeting to look at the complaints made and the reports and place questions on those reports. And I'm now being spoken over, so I am going to second it for those reasons. Had Mr. Morris kept purely to the report and questions on that, I would not be doing this.
Thank you.
Well, I'm
Can
happy
the
to
vote,
what
please?
I can and can't say.
Members, I will call you in alphabetical order. Can you state clearly for, against, abstain? Councillor Bassinger.
Against.
Channer.
For, because Mr. Quelch has been interrogated.
Councillor Helm.
For.
Councillor Jarvis.
Thanks, Bernard. I think it's a great pity because I think would be some good, useful information, useful comments that Chrissy Morris could make. But I'm afraid he has, I think, overstepped the mark there. He's not sticking to the point. He has been cautioned. He's made it clear that he won't stick to the point because he feels that's his right. So there's some hesitation, I'm afraid. I'm for that motion.
Right.
Councillor Keys.
For.
Councillor Mays. Sorry, Councillor Mays. Councillor Mays, you're still with us? I can see you. Councillor Mays has said she's having real problems hearing what's going on. She's still in the meeting, but Councillor Mays, can you hear us now?
Yeah, against.
Thank you very much. Councillor Nunn.
Reluctantly for.
Councillor Stamp.
Councillor Morris, I really am. I'm really sorry, but we cannot conduct this business. I know you've got your rights and you're very, very a valid member of this council, but we cannot hear this meeting if you're not going to follow the processes and the rules. I'm really sorry, Councillor Morris, but I'm going to have to ask that you do abide by the rules, or I support the motion as well. And that is, I don't really want to do it, but I'm going to do it for this council.
Is that a for, against, or abstention, Councillor Stamp?
Oh God. It's for.
Thank you, members. That's 6 for the recommendation, 2 against, and no abstentions.
Thank you very much.
Chairman, can Councillor Morris come back on the next part of the meeting, please, Chairman?
He can come back, no problem at all,
Thank
as long as he sticks to the procedure.
Well,
Yes,
then
I mean, I was, Chairman, I must make it clear, I was only doing it as a result of what's been going on here. Yes, I wasn't reading the whole shebang.
Okay.
You've allowed the bullying to go on. You've allowed the homophobia, and you don't like it when I bring it up. The majority of you are corrupt.
Councillor Morris, I'm so sorry we've had to take the decision, but you just will not stop.
Stop.
Please,
You're
can you now switch him off, please?
You didn't even know who was in the room at the last meeting.
Can we now switch Councillor Morris off, please, following that vote?
Right, folks.
Thank you. Committee members, I now invite you to ask the monitoring officer any questions. Please use the chat function if you wish to speak. Can you, Bernard, can you indicate who wants to speak, please?
Yes, Chairman. Councillor Stamp, Councillor Nunn and Councillor Channer have questions.
Councillor Nunn?
Stamp. No, Bernard, mine was earlier on. I haven't indicated at the moment to speak.
Oh, okay, sorry, it was just right at the beginning. So Councillor Nunn and Councillor Channer.
Okay, Councillor Nunn, Councillor Channer. Councillor Nunn.
Thank you very much, Chairman. So I have 3 questions, Chairman, for the monitoring officer. Whilst I understand, Mr. Quelch, why we're considering the issue of October, I don't understand why the issue of November has been included in the report if the conclusion is that the councillor was acting as a member of the public, i.e. Mr. My understanding of the Joint Standards Committee is that we're primarily here to consider breaches of the councillor code of conduct. So why did it meet the threshold to be brought to Joint Standards Committee when your clear conclusion was that it doesn't amount to a breach of the code of conduct? Do you not believe that to be in some way double jeopardy?
No, I think there's maybe a misunderstanding, Councillor Nunn. There were 2 aspects to Councillor Dewick's complaint. The first was in relation to overview and scrutiny on the 14th of November last year. My conclusion is that on that occasion, Councillor Morris was present in the committee as a member of the public, not as a councillor.
Yes.
Hence, I don't believe the code is engaged, and my view is that part of the complaint should be dismissed. In relation to the second part of the complaint, there are 2 council meetings that are referred to, not overview and scrutiny, full council meetings, on the 3rd of October and the 21st of November. On both occasions, Councillor Morris was present there as a member of the council.
Yes, so I understand all of that, but in simple terms, why has the allegation involving Mr. Morris been included in the report?
Because that was the complaint. Because the complaint, if you read the complaint letter,
I have.
Yeah, so I dealt with that because it was one complaint. I dealt with it in the report to show that, because that letter would have been annexed, to show that I dismissed it and why I dismissed it.
So why then, sorry to keep on, Mr. Coach, but why then are we considering it today?
Well, you could overrule me if you wanted to and say the code was engaged, but my view is it isn't, and therefore I didn't pursue the investigation. The reason I've included it, Councillor Nunn, is because it formed part of the letter as one complaint. And so for completeness, I wanted the Joint Standards Committee to see my reasoning.
Okay, thank you for explaining that. My second question is, notwithstanding the terrible situation we're in with COVID-19, the allegations evidence against Councillor Morris in Appendix 1
Right.
date back to October and November 2019,
Yeah.
some 10 months ago.
Yes.
Why has it taken so long to bring this to the Joint Standards Committee?
Well, there was initially my report was going to go to Joint Standards in February. That had to be cancelled. I can't remember the reason now, but that had to be cancelled. And it was then programmed to go on the 27th. In fact, the agenda had been issued, I believe, for the 27th of March. Unfortunately, COVID-19 and the lockdown came in, so that committee meeting had to be abandoned. This is the first Joint Standards Committee that has been held since IMG has ceased to be making decisions. Now, it was a possibility that IMG, which was obviously holding matters in the interim, was a small group of officers and members, could have actually dealt with this issue. And I put that to IMG, but IMG felt that was inappropriate and that it should be dealt with a fully constituted Joint Standards Committee. So that meant, despite my attempts to get it in February, in March, and then later on to IMG, I was thwarted. Not for want of trying, Councillor Nunn.
Okay, thank you. And my final question is, what weight should this committee give to the fact that at paragraph 8 in your report, the then chairman of Malvern District Council did not wish to bring a complaint?
Yeah, you need to weigh that in the balance. I think that's right, Councillor Nunn. The thing is, you've got to decide it not so much on who was the complainant, but the conduct. And the Code of Conduct asks you to consider, for example, in relation to 3.2, you must treat others with respect. Sometimes a complainant, and I've dealt with lots of different complaints, quite a few recently, I have to say, rather disproportionate amount recently, Councillor Nunn. Sometimes people make complaints about complaints that are where other people are the victim. It's not unusual because sometimes the victim is unprepared to come forward for their own personal reasons.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Quelch, and thank you, Chair.
That's all right, Councillor Nunn. Anybody else?
Chairman, Councillor Channer and then Councillor Stamp.
Okay, Councillor Channer.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Actually, Councillor Nunn and I must have similar minds because I was going to refer to paragraph 8 and regarding when the monitoring officer spoke to the chairman of the council at that point, Councillor Bob Boyce, and I was going to ask exactly that same question because the rest of the report was silent on that. It didn't make it clear what if weight any at all had been applied to the monitoring officer's sort of conclusions, if you like, bearing in mind that the chairman's stance on that. So then the other question I'll ask, and I can't find it now because I've been moving around and lost it totally. But Mr. Quelch, in that same report, and I'm sure he'll remember it, made the sentence that he sensed that Councillor Morris really didn't understand his responsibilities, or words to that effect, sensed. So to me, there's a difference between sensing and really being clear on that fact from questions put. So I just wonder if Mr. Quelch could just expand a bit more on the sense he had.
Yes.
Was it as a result of questioning? Because we can all sense certain things. So I think it's important that there's clarity if it's based on sense alone or whether there's something that backs up that statement.
Okay. Chairman, yes, I understand the question. Thank you. I didn't, in the interview with Councillor Morris, which I have to say was quite a friendly one, I did not put the question to him whether he, about this issue of whether he was aware of his responsibilities. And so because the question wasn't put, I I'm basing my view in paragraph 11 on the fact that Councillor Morris was denying all the time that he had in any way interfered with the business, that he had interrupted the chairman, or that this was responsible for the closure of the October meeting. So although it's because I didn't ask him the explicit question, what do you say about your response? What is your attitude to responsibility?
Okay, thank you, Chairman. You were very clear about he understood his rights.
That my view of that interview was that Councillor Morris was only concerned about his rights. He had no sense of appreciation of his responsibilities as a councillor to abide by the Constitution, along with 30 other councillors.
One more question, if I may, Chairman. Mr. Quelch, you did mention the word about the Constitution. A lot of it is mandatory. It is a way to ensure the business of the council is conducted efficiently and effectively. And also, can you also state that the chairman's ruling on the Constitution should not be challenged? It's Rule 23, I think, that the interpretation of the Constitution and how it is applied is in the gift of the chairman of the council, because it is effectively his Constitution.
That's absolutely right, Councillor Channer. If you go to paragraph 9 of my report, page 8 and in fact, the top of page 9, you'll see I cite Rule 23 in my report. And that explicitly says that his decision in relation to rules shall be final. There is no appeal against the chairman's decision.
Yes, I just wanted to draw that out. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Councillor Stamp.
Yes, please, Chairman. Thank you. Thank you for that, Councillor Channer, as well. I actually do have an issue with that anyway, what you've just raised, but that's by the by. Simon Quelch, would you mind asking, are we actually referring all your points to our Constitution and Code of Conduct, or are we including the Human Rights Act? Because it states quite clearly that you are to allow freedom of speech, and it's unfortunate at the moment that we have decided to exclude Councillor Morris, but that was purely because the meeting was not allowed to be progressing because of the way it was being handled and what he was saying. But what are we looking at this under? The Code of Conduct, his or any councillor's right to speak? And I will just justify that and back that up before you actually speak, if that's all right, Mr. Quelch, because if you actually look at the transcript, which is Appendix 1, I'll be quite honest here, whether I'm controversial or not, and whether I get into trouble, I do apologise. It's not meant to be offensive. I found it quite tit for tat. And I also found it that Councillor Morris was not rude to the chairman. I accept that, you know, he shouldn't maybe have carried on, but he does have a right to speak. And, you know, OK, it's not everybody's cup of tea, the way he speaks and the way he puts things over, Mr. Quelch and Chairman. But we do have to be careful here, and we do have to look at it. He has never been rude. If you read that transcript, I've read it so many times. And, you know, Councillor, the ex-chairman turned around at one stage and said rubbish about the Human Rights Act and was denying the councillor his chance to say what he wanted to say. So I haven't made any predeterminations before anybody starts to put a report together or whatever on me. I'm just concerned about that. So can you please, in a roundabout way of me prattling on yet again, are we actually following this under our Code of Conduct that includes the Human Rights Act? I know it was touched on earlier, but I would like that clearly said for all members sitting around on this committee meeting, please, Mr. Quelch.
Yeah, the Article 10, I think, is what you're referring to, freedom of expression under the convention. That applies to Malden District Council. It's a public body, and therefore the Human Rights Act applies to it. So the Code of Conduct has to be read in the light of Article 10. There's no doubt about that. But when you read Article 10, it's quite clear to me, and I haven't got it in front of me, but I've read it a few times in the past. Article 10 has lots of exceptions to it. And I believe that the Localism Act 2011, under which this code of conduct was made, because that act, as you know, requires that it's mandatory that the local authority has a code of conduct. And common to that, common to all local authorities, I don't know an authority that doesn't have a requirement for respect. And so I don't believe there's any conflict between the code of conduct and Article 10. I believe they're completely in harmony. So the answer to your question is, yes, Article 10 does apply, but there's nothing in the code of conduct that conflicts with Article 10.
Sorry, Chairman, can I just ask, except for stopping freedom of speech if it's in the wrong place, shall we say?
Well, I think this is the very issue that you have to decide as members, isn't it?
Yes, please.
You have to decide whether it's legitimate for a councillor when you have rules that control how a meeting works, for that member to disobey those rules. If you're satisfied as a joint standards committee that is legitimate for a member to choose when he does or when he doesn't obey those rules, then if you feel that's legitimate, then you will find that there is no disrespect.
Thank you. Yep. Would you like me to say any more, Chairman? I mean, I would like to, thank you. I'd like to refer to, because we are still dealing with appendixes, aren't we, Mr. Koch? If you go to page 28, 6 of 19 or whatever it is, I mean, the notes I've written on there, I've just put Councillor Boyce sticking up so much for another councillor, whatever. And I'm going to just try and balance this, because I feel this is a little bit unbalanced at the moment. If you look further down there's a comment, and the previous chairman said that this councillor wasn't going to be included, or he shouldn't be included, and you wouldn't be included. If you look further down, Maurice, you've got a little bit of a argy-bargy, as I would call it. So I actually feel, again, like I've just said, there was a lot of tit for tat. The issue may be the way that we are looking at it, I think, from the moment, is whether he's breached, Councillor Morris has breached the code of conduct by not shutting up. But I have a real issue in the fact that whether we like it or not, whether this councillor's methods are acceptable to some or not, he hasn't been allowed to speak properly. Just because he does say things, you know, and I totally, Councillor Morris, I'm sure you're listening, even though you can't speak. I didn't agree with the way that you was attacking the monitoring officer. I thought your questions were you feel they're justified. My personal view was they aren't. But I think it was very tit for tat, and I think some of this is uncalled for, and some of the language that was used is inflammatory, Mr. Quelch. So I'm sure you can't help me, but I really am struggling to actually mitigate or balance. Sorry, I didn't put my camera on. I do apologise. To balance this. Thank you, Chairman. It's not a question. It was just a statement. Thank you.
Okay, that's fine. Anybody else?
Yes, Chairman. Councillor Jarvis and then Councillor Bassinger.
Councillor Jarvis, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I've listened to what Councillor Stamp says there, and I think my comments are similar to hers. This is we all know the style that Councillor Morrissey sort of adopts. He is a disruptor. He's not very keen on the rules, and some of us might find that outside of our comfort zone. But it's also true that, you know, he's a representative and he has a number of points to say. And the fact is, quite a lot of the stuff that he says are issues that the council perhaps needs to listen to, and quite a lot of the stories or accusations that he's made have subsequently been found to have substance. So I do share some sympathy with his desire to bring matters to the attention, some very important matters to the attention of the council. And I think this is always the slight problem here with balance, because I think, if he could adopt a style where he brings those matters at the right time, in the right way, he would be more effective in serving his public, in getting those issues properly considered. But look, we're all different. We all have a different style. We can't tell people to behave in a different way. So I think, with regards to section 11 of the report, which we're talking about, I think I've heard that monitoring officer has said that he sensed Chrissy Morris. He didn't sense that he was aware of his responsibilities. Well, I'd like to listen, as we've got Councillor Morris here, when he's allowed back in. I'd just like to hear from him, if that's okay, if he is aware of his responsibilities as a councillor, directly from him, if that's okay, Chairman. Let's just hear what he has to say. And I think my only other point, if I may, Chairman, is that I notice that there are a number of sanctions that are obviously in this report. I'm not sure if we're talking about the sanctions yet, but they're obviously contained within the report. If we're talking about the whole report, if we are, then I just wondered if the monitoring officer could comment as to, look, how effective he thinks most of those sanctions are going to be. A censure on Chrissy Morris, a written apology, coming off a few committees. I'm trying to get to how we can actually make the most of, get the best out of Councillor Morris. It'd be really good if we could come to a sort of understanding, I think, so he can contribute, which I think he can enormously to the council. But he does have to respect, obviously, the rules of the council as well. So I think when the opportunity is there, I'd like to hear, Chairman, from Chrissy Morris about his view on his responsibilities as a councillor and acting within the democracy of the council and its constitution. Chairman, thank you.
Thank you. Bernard, anybody else?
Yes, Chairman. Councillor Batson.
I'd like to second the proposal by Councillor Jarvis.
I haven't finished. I'd just like to.
Beg your pardon.
Where are we, Mr. Chairman?
It's you now, Councillor Bassinger.
Thank you. I would just like to clarify, being as the chairman at this meeting hasn't made the complaint, I would just like to point out that Councillor Jewett was the main complainant at the last joint standards meeting, as he is at this one. And again, I just feel that perhaps he's being a little oversensitive, and I don't really understand why he's the only one that seems to have made the complaint, apart from obviously the outside person.
Thank you for that. Anybody else?
Not at the moment, Chairman. Not with a question. Oh, Councillor Shannon would like to come back.
Councillor Shannon.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd just like to say I do agree with quite a bit that Councillor Jarvis has said there. And I think the issue is, Chairman, and I guess it is about, and the reason I had to go with your request to be no longer heard, because as I made my case quite clear, the assurances, and I think that's quite important, is about the process. And actually, if we all did, or behave, I know we all have different ways of behaving, but if we all acted in that way, constantly spoke all at the same time and over the chairman, then the meeting of the business could not progress. It would just be total fallout. And I think that's what we're sort of concentrating on. And I'm sure Councillor Morris going forward, I know this morning's meeting, what had to occur and everything, but it is about wanting to say your piece, but saying it probably at the right time, in the right manner, and not speaking over necessarily the chairman. And I know that Councillor Morris feels the chairman spoke after him, and that was pointed out in the report. And that's why he feels he was the, if you like, the victim of the scene, and why the meeting was closed down. Nothing to do with him, but the chairman. But we couldn't all act in that same way. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to progress the business, Chairman. So I'm sure if you do permit Councillor Morris to come back, because I think it might be useful to hear in respect of the responsibilities, his take on that, Chairman.
Thank you for that, Councillor Channer. I will ask Simon first to read out the independent person's report, please, and then I'll ask Councillor Morris to come back. Okay, I'll invite him back into the meeting.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. This is a email from Norman Hodson on the 1st of September. He says that he was unable to attend this meeting. And he, in respect of the complaint made by Councillor Dewick, 1, as per the report, I agree with the investigator. Councillor Morris did not contravene the code of conduct in relation to his conduct at the overview and scrutiny meeting. 2, as per events at the October and November council meetings, from the information provided and given that I am not entirely sure of the procedure, it is somewhat difficult for me to determine what went on at these meetings. Certain concerns were expressed by Councillor Morris that he should be allowed to speak, and the chairman did allow a recorded vote on one occasion, which was only won by one vote. This seemingly indicates that a good many of the councillors were prepared for him to carry on interrupting this particular meeting. The investigator has clearly explained the council's own rules of council behaviour, which Councillor Morris appeared to flout on a number of occasions at both meetings of the council. Therefore, in my view, Councillor Morris did contravene the code of conduct at both the October and November meetings. I would agree that it could reasonably determine that he did bring the office of councillor and that of the council into disrepute.
Thank you for that, Simon. Councillor Morris, can you switch him back on to come, but please comment on the facts of this, not other things, please.
I've had my microphone working all the time, just to prove that I can sit on my hands when I need to.
Well done, Councillor Morris. I respect you for that.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Chairman,
I'm fully enough, eh?
Chairman, Councillor Mays would like to ask a question before we move on to the next stage.
Councillor Mays, would you like to ask a question of somebody?
Thank you. It's really just in relation to the email that Mr. Quelch has just read out, which I've only just seen. I didn't see it attached to the original email that he sent out, so I apologise for that. It's quite interesting. I think that we are not, as members, we are not so much concerned with the interrupting that goes on, because we do actually want to hear publicly what Councillor Morrison has to say. However, I do feel that sometimes we need to have that in a much more concise manner, and maybe, as Councillor Jarvis pointed out, we need to try and find a way to work forward with that and deal with some of the aspects that are being brought to our attention. This is important for the reputation, which is absolutely paramount, of this council, and we need to build on that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much for your kind words. Right, where do we go next? Councillor Morris, do you want to say anything?
Yeah. I've got plenty to say. Whether or not I'm being allowed to say it is a different.
Confine it to a report, please, okay?
Well, I was thinking he was going to do answer what Councillor Jarvis.
Penny, you know, you're interrupting. You've not asked to speak or anything. You've interrupted me. You've not done what the chairman has requested.
Okay.
Is this frozen? Right. So, Michael, what
Yes.
I would suggest, so I don't get in any trouble, is that I would like to field any questions from any councillor or any officer. In fact, anyone that's got a question, I'm open all ears.
Okay. Has anyone got any questions, please?
Yes, please.
Councillor, was that Councillor Canner?
Yes, Chairman. Well, really, I thought what was agreed, Councillor Jarvis spoke. I came in and Councillor Jarvis said he'd be interested to hear Councillor Morris's views about the responsibilities and like to hear from him. And I thought that's what I agreed as well. Yeah. I thought that's what you said, Chairman. You'd ask him to come back in to give Councillor Morris the opportunity to speak regarding the point Councillor Jarvis made.
Would you like the opportunity to speak on that?
Answer questions. Answer questions is as I understood it. So I'm here saying, has anyone got any questions? Councillor Channer, if you've got a question, please pose it.
Well, I'll frame what Councillor Jarvis put then in a question regarding your responsibilities. How do you see how do you understand your responsibilities? You may understand your rights, but want to hear from you the understanding of your responsibilities as a councillor when we're in the chamber, etc., and regarding the constitution.
My responsibilities is to uphold the Nolan principles. My responsibilities are to the people that voted for me, to the community, and to the vulnerable people that were being bullied at Malton District Council. I am disgusted that only a handful of councillors decided to actually help me with the bullying culture that was perpetrated throughout Malton District Council. All of our councillors knew what was going on. Very few of us, including you, stood up. You didn't stand up, Penny. We have seen bullying go on in this council for years, and no one has done anything about it. I know better run burger vans than Malton District Council. It was terrible. Everyone, almost everyone, ignored it, and we should have all collectively rooted it out. And it was left to me to do. I was the one at the front. I was helped by certain other councillors, but every single councillor has a moral responsibility, and there you go, there's your responsibility quote, to stand up to wrongdoing. And the chairman, the former chairman, Bob Boyce, was part of the bullying culture, along with the chairman of this JSC, Mr. Helms, along with Thompson, who, and excuse my French, has admitted to calling her own councillors bastards in a public meeting. Something I never done.
Please.
Got off that very easily. That's
I'm
why
standing
she's
up,
here.
Councillor Morris. I'm standing
All
up,
right,
okay?
all right. So responsibilities, my responsibility. Oh, stop standing up, you weirdo. My responsibility.
That's what the chairman does when he wants someone to sit down and be
Me
quiet.
again. You're interrupting me again. You don't even know who's in the room in the last one, mate. Now, my responsibilities are to the people and to the truth. Is all I've done is tell the truth. Everything I said has proven to be correct. The last Joint Standards meeting, where we all found Fluker to be a homophobic bully that's threatened women in the chamber, has been. I've got my vindication from that.
You're going astray from this meeting. We're talking about your report. I invited you to speak, and you obviously don't want to speak. I don't want to have to go to the vote again, Councillor.
To the people being bullied, my responsibilities are to the people being bullied and to the truth. I'm sorry if my ugly truth offends your beautiful lies, but what I said was a fact. It needed to be exposed and it needed to be challenged.
Councillor Morris, Councillor Morris, Chairman, can I come in? Councillor Morris, would you be able to listen to what Councillor Jarvis said and actually allow him to speak now? Would that be acceptable to you? Because Councillor Jarvis spoke a great deal of sense, Councillor Morris. Chairman, is that okay with you too?
That's okay with me because Councillor Morris is straying again.
Sorry?
Hello, Councillor Morris. I think, as I was saying earlier, I was keen to hear what you had to say. I think I would describe you as a disruptor, and I mean that as a compliment, because sometimes in councils, in any organisation, you need people who are going to make change happen. And I do think you bring that to the council. You know that that's my view on that. But it's really a question of you achieving a balance, if you can, as well as wanting to achieve that and bring matters to people's attention and get justice and right to happen and to expose issues that are wrong. And you do that very well. Obviously, for us to function as an effective council, there are rules so that we can do that. So we're not all talking at once, so that somebody can steer a meeting. And I just appeal to you to try and operate, if you can, within those guidelines that we set. And those guidelines are there to ensure that we can all serve the people we've been elected to serve. You know that's right. It's not just you serving people, we're serving people too. So if you can, I'm appeal to you to sort of temper that natural enthusiasm and energy, which I admire. If you can temper that, I think you'd be amazed what you and the council as a whole can then achieve. And I just appeal to you on that basis.
Yep. Councillor Jarvis, thank you very much. As you know, I've got great respect for you. I do believe that you are an excellent councillor. You're one of the few councillors that's worth a rub in this district. What I would say, mate, is that my faults make me perfect for my purpose. I make no apology for the way I present things. I do them the best I can. Sometimes I'm coarse, sometimes I'm stubborn, but sometimes that is the course of action that is needed. I understand what you're saying about doing things a different way, but as you will all be aware, for the first 6 months of getting into the district council, is all I've done was sit there on my hands. I didn't say boo to a goose. I watched councillors, and excuse my French, I saw councillors saying fucking tosser to officers in the chamber, and they ain't here. Various stuff like that. But I never had, and still don't want to burn it down. I simply want to make it right. Now, I tried. I appealed to, on a personal level, on an informal level, to all the people that I could. I tried, and I was ignored and laughed at. So I was left with very, very few options but to do things the way I've done. You might not like my methods, but you cannot argue with the results. We should have dealt with this months ago, and it shouldn't have had to come out like this to the public to make the reputation of the council even worse. Not enough. And you, Councillor Jarvis, were excellent. I've got to say, yourself and a few other councillors were very good, but the majority of councillors did absolutely nothing to try and address the issues. And quite simply, sorry, I've lost my train of thought on that one. Quite simply, no one did enough. And it was left to myself.
Can I come in? All right. Look, I've heard what you've got to say, but you've seen already from this morning, you've seen from things that have happened in recent times. Change is upon us. Things are happening. They're not happening as quickly as you would like. They're not happening as quickly as a lot of people would like, but they are happening. So I think if you can be a little patient, work with people, other people who want to achieve a lot of the changes you want to achieve, you'll find that that's an effective way. We, as a council, we have to have some rules and regulations. It sounds boring, but we have to have it so everybody can have their say. So I'm just appealing to you. Look, you know change is happening. If you can just work with us over the next few months, I think you will be amazed how much can be achieved. And that's an honest appeal to you.
Well said.
And I appreciate that. I appreciate that. And I totally take that on board. I'll take that one completely on the chin. The trouble I've got is that when when I'm sitting here being personally attacked by the people that didn't stand up for the, against the bullying, that is my rub. I've got a problem with officers and other councillors lying about what's going on. If this council spent as much time sorting these problems out as it did to cover them up, we wouldn't be here.
Okay. Let's see if we can try and stick with today's programme. Councillor Morris, please. Get through the business.
I've seen what makes you laugh. All right? I'm not bothered by your score, seeing what makes you laugh, okay?
Thank you,
Sorry,
Councillor.
I couldn't hear that.
Pardon?
Sorry, I didn't hear what Councillor Morris said. He was a bit broken up.
What I said, Councillor Channer, was I'm not bothered by Councillor Helms's scorn because I've seen what makes him laugh.
Pardon?
Okay, let's move on.
Let's get through the business.
Chairman, Councillor Nunn would like to.
Anyone have a question for me? I did say that I'd field any questions, please.
Councillor Nunn, I probably believe has.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Well, no, I don't have any questions of Councillor Morris. I have a proposition to make.
Okay. Would you like to make the proposition, please?
Yes, thank you very much. So, having read the report and listened to the evidence very carefully and the eloquent comments of Councillor Jarvis, my feelings are that the November Mr. Morris issue should never have been brought to us. And therefore, I agree that the code has not been breached because Mr. Morris was acting as a member of the general public. And as far as the second element is concerned, which the October and November concerns, I think Councillor Morris was very close to the mark. However, we are living through and have lived through difficult times, as illustrated by this morning's hearing. And on that basis, I do not believe at this stage, with half of the evidence before us, the first report, I do not believe that Councillor Morris has failed to comply with the Code of Conduct.
Okay, have we a seconder for that?
I'll second that.
Councillor Mays. Okay. Right, Bernard, can we go to the vote, please?
Can we just check? Councillor Mays had asked to ask a question as well. Are you content?
Councillor Mays.
Oh, yes, Mr. Chairman. The only thing I wanted to draw members' attention to was in the European Convention on Human Rights, paragraph 12G says politicians are required to have a thick skin. I mean, not that thick. You know, we do have to have some sensitive sides, and be tolerant of criticism and adverse comment. It then goes on to say, and I think that Councillor Morris, as Councillor Nunn has pointed out, this falls very much into that field, and hence I have supported Councillor Nunn's proposal.
Okay, thank you very much for that. I take it I have a thick skin as well. Right, we'll move on to the vote.
Chairman, do we not debate it like we did again this morning after the proposals made, Chairman?
But I thought we were ready to go to the vote. Do you want to debate it?
I think some members want to debate it, Chairman.
Okay, if that's the wish, carry on debating it. Who do you want to speak first?
Councillor Jarvis would like to speak.
Councillor Jarvis.
Thank you, Chairman. I think it's just a proper process, isn't it? Once a motion has been put and seconded, that we should have, even if it's a brief opportunity, we should have an opportunity to debate it. I think, as I was saying earlier, this really is a question of balance. I think I witnessed and I read the reports, certainly some disruption which caused problems. It's a fine-edged thing, though, because a lot of the points that were made were very useful, and I can understand the frustration that Councillor Morris has had. At the same time, you know, I would love to see and hear some words of respect with regards to the process that we all have to adhere to if we're going to run an effective council. So I think it's very difficult, but I think I find myself wanting to hear and wanting to Councillor Morris to do the good things he does. But I find it very difficult reading the monitoring officer's report and hearing the comments from the independent officer. I find it very difficult not to come to a conclusion that perhaps his actions did bring the council into disrepute, because, you know, obviously because he stopped the process so often. So it's very difficult. I think it's a very finely judged thing, and I think councillors have got a very difficult decision to make on a finely judged issue.
Councillor Chandler, did you want to say something?
Yes, Chair.
Thank you, Chairman. I think Councillor Jarvis has, you know, largely said it all. However, having done the training and everything, and you're asked to look at the evidence, and obviously I've seen Councillor Dewitt's letter. However, what I've been concentrating on is the report of the monitoring officer and his assessment of it all, and the facts he's laid out clearly, and also his conclusion, what he feels. And also, of course, we have to hear the views of the independent person, which we have as well. and he was quite clear. I do agree regarding the complaint regarding, which was related to the November Ovian scrutiny. Yeah, I agree with Councillor Nunn that actually, because Councillor Morris it was quite clear, he was called Mr. Morris, you allowed him to speak. I think you were in the chair at the time, actually, Councillor Helm, and you allowed him to speak as a member of the public. So therefore, yes. I think that one's aside. So I'm going now on the meetings of the council of October and November. I've read the report of the monitoring officer. I see the evidence that is within there, if you like, and the assessment by the monitoring officer. We've asked questions of the monitoring officer. He's answered them. Norman Hodgson's email was quite clear and specific, and both really show the same conclusion, Chairman. So I have to go with the evidence presented and conclusions drawn by persons that are experienced in this more so than I am.
Thank you, Councillor Channer. Anybody else?
Yes, Chairman. Councillor Stamp would like to speak.
Councillor Stamp, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I want to refer back, just before we move on to the vote, to the email from Councillor Dewick and the second to bottom paragraph, when he actually says this boorish behaviour, I believe, is deliberate. Councillor Morris clearly has no respect for the democratic authority of Maldon District Council. He has no respect for the chairman of Maldon District Council, nor for its members and officers. Well, I actually don't agree with that. I think Councillor Morris shows a great deal of respect to officers and members if they show him respect too. I've only known Councillor Morris since he was elected, and I am going to speak as I find. He has always been respectful to me. He has never disrespected me, no matter what different views we've had. And I know it's difficult when you're chairing a meeting, Chairman, when there's a difficult councillor or a member of the public giving you grief. Totally take that on board. And that's the area of concern I have. Still haven't decided I'm going to vote. But that's the area of concern I have. And Councillor Channer and Jarvis is quite correct to say that we all have to work under the rules. Saying that, I refer to what I said previously. If you read the transcript, Councillor Morris wasn't shown respect, and he gave the lack of respect back to the chairman at the time. I'm not saying two rights make a wrong, because I was always taught that from being from the north, two rights don't make a wrong. But I do think we have to look at this in the context, and we've also got to look at this in the treatment, and it is relevant, Chairman, the treatment we've all was given when we was elected as independents in May 2019. And I think we have to take into account that, I mean, I was surprised, Chairman, that these three complaints was all huddled together. I personally think the first complaint should have come to the Standards Committee. The second one should have come. It's like saying, oh, it's like husbands and wives relationship. Oh, I'm going to hold that against you, and when I have a row, I'm going to absolutely throw it at you. I don't think that's the way this council should operate. I think if there was a complaint, it should have been made, it should have been assessed, and it should have been brought to committee or non-committee, whatever the decision had been made. But to me, to put them all together and say, oh, you have been a naughty boy because we've put them all together, I'm sorry, I actually don't agree with. And as I've said, I still haven't made my mind up, but I have had, Councillor Morris has never, ever disrespected me, and I have actually had compliments from his residents where he works. He works really hard where he actually is as a town councillor. So, I mean, come on, there is a balance here. Don't forget, Chairman, I think I've still got a minute left, that when we came into the independence, we were disallowed and we were not allowed to take part in anything. Now, can you imagine all the Conservative councillors being excluded because you've been in power for 28 years, Chairman, how you would feel? It's not nice. So I think there's been a build-up here, and I feel personally, you know, I think I'm a fair person. I think there's mitigation. And that's why I still haven't made my mind up. And thank you, Chairman, for allowing me to speak.
That's fine, Councillor Stamp. No problem at all.
Chairman.
Yes.
Chairman, Councillor Morris would like to ask a question, and then Councillor Channer.
Okay, Councillor Morris.
Ladies first, please, Chair.
Councillor Channer, please.
Thank you, Councillor Morris. I think that's an example of courtesy that Councillor Morris can show, as he did in a meeting when he let another lady speak. Just to
I
say,
agree.
I
No.
just need to be clear on something. Councillor Stamp now has referred to lumping all these complaints together. So can I just be clear, Chairman? We have got the other complaint from the member of the public. Are we taking that separately and judging?
I will take that separately.
So we concur. We do something on this one to say what we feel, and then there'll be a discussion on that other one, and then we have an issue on whether breach or not on that one. There're going to be two separate breaches.
Yeah.
I would like two separate separate meetings. Is that all right, Simon?
Yeah, but it's lumped, Chairman, it's lumped together, really. You're at the same joint standards hearing, Chairman, no matter how you want to dress it up.
But we haven't discussed the member of the public. That's what I'm saying. We're coming on to that after this, are we? So we're doing a vote on this one, and then we'll move to the member of the public and vote on that. So there could be two or not situations.
Simon, can I have advice from you whether we put it all together or do one at a time?
You have two separate complaint letters dealing with completely different meetings, and you have two separate investigations. The fact that they happen to be in the same committee meeting doesn't mean to say that they are not separate investigations.
Chairman, can I ask how often this has happened before, please, just for a matter of clarity? How many times have you had this happen before, where this two separate or three separate things have been held at the same JSC committee?
I haven't had this before, and I was thrust into this meeting without any prior warning. So I would have to ask Simon whether this happened before.
I've never had complaints against the councillor in such quick succession. So, yeah, it's never happened before, but I've never been in a situation. I think furthermore, as I've just explained, the first matter was going to be brought on its own in February. That had to be cancelled. I tried to bring it as quickly as I could, but that wasn't possible. I tried then to bring it in March. The government then closed everything down, and members decided they weren't going to have any meetings. That wasn't my decision, that was members' decision. And so I tried to bring it to IMG. They were unprepared to deal with it. So initially this should have been dealt with on its own, the first report, in February. Now, I could have brought separate JSCs, but they relate to similar behaviour, even though they're separate investigations. And it would have meant that Councillor Morris would have had to have attended to council. This seems to me to be the most efficient way. That's my view, and maybe members feel otherwise. I don't know what else I can say, really. I don't understand what the problem is. But.
Chairman, can I come back to try and clarify what the problem may be, or the problem I have with it? Thank you. The problem is that if the first complaint had have been heard, and if the councillor had have had any sanctions, like suggested training, like whatever, we may not have come to the second complaint. So while the monitoring officer has stated his case very clearly and eloquently, and fine, I don't have a problem with that, I do have a problem that I still say, if it had been found guilty, non-guilty, whatever you want to say, it would have been dealt with. Whereas I feel lumping them both together, you've already got the thing, if the councillor gets found to breach the code of conduct, they're going to think, oh, well, his behaviours continue. I don't think that we have given councillors support, training, time, etc., and I do feel that's mitigated, and I take on board what Councillor Chan has said. She's absolutely right, and thank you for pointing it out. I did actually say that at the very beginning. I knew it was going to be conducted separately, but I was there to make a point. Thank you.
Right, members, what do you want to do? Do you want them separately or all in one? Can I have a proposal, please?
Chairman, Councillor Nunn would like to come back.
I propose.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Just to be absolutely clear, my seconded proposition relates to Appendix 1, the first report. That was my proposition for the first report only.
Okay.
So, Chairman, may I come in?
Yes, you may, because
I think the monitoring officer has made it very. I think the monitoring officer has made it very clear that this is the first complaint, if you like. There's the overview and scrutiny and the council meetings of November and October. Then we deal with that. And then the second investigation is to do with the complaint from the member of the public, and we deal with that. So from what I'm hearing and what Councillor Nunn has just clarified and made clear as well, this is only to do with the first report, which Mr. Quelch took us through, relating to overview and scrutiny and November and October council meetings. And then we move on, once that vote's taken, to consider the complaint made by the member of the public and the investigation therein that then followed.
Quite right.
Thank you for that, Councillor Channer. That's what I intended to do, but people put doubt in my mind. So has everyone finished discussion on this? And can we move to the vote, or does anyone want to say any more?
I did ask to speak.
Yes, you may.
I would just like to remind everyone that my concerns that I tried to bring up informally and through other avenues were rejected, were ignored. So the only thing I had left to do was to bring them to full council and to everyone's attention, because I was being ignored.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Morris.
I've not finished. If I was listened to at an earlier stage, and if more people would have taken on board the concerns and the proven acts of a select few councillors, you being one of those councillors, Michael, then this wouldn't have happened. I did what I had to do, and I make no apology for that. Maybe next time, hopefully there won't be a next time, I won't have to do that way, because we collectively will do it. This is politically motivated, and political loyalty shouldn't come into it. We should be looking at this morally, and morally, what has happened with Fluker and the Flukerites was abhorrent and shouldn't have happened. And if it means that I have to do this, then that's fine. I'll do it again. But my responsibility is to the truth.
Okay. Thank you very much, Councillor Morris. Are we ready to go to the vote?
Yes.
Councillor Berner, can you go to the vote, please? Do you want it recorded, anybody?
Yes.
Can we just have it clear again, Chairman, what Councillor Nunn's proposal was?
Recorded vote.
Berner, can you read out the proposal, please, and the second? Councillor Nunn, can you put your proposal again, please?
Oh, sorry, Chair, I thought you were talking to Berner. Yes, my proposal is that the first element of the complaint relating to Mr. Morris should never have been brought to us in the first place, because it's not a breach of the code, and we're here primarily to look at breaches of the code. The second element, I believe that Councillor Morris was very close to the mark, but it was a heated debate in the context of very difficult times with this district council, as demonstrated by this morning's Joint Standards Committee. And therefore, my conclusion is that Councillor Morris has not failed to comply with the Members' Code of Conduct.
Okay. Is there any other proposals before we go to the vote?
I'd like to second that proposal.
Yes, you did earlier on, Councillor Mace. I knew that.
Thank you.
Right, Berner, can you go to the vote then, please?
And there was a call for a recorded vote. Has that been seconded?
Does anyone
I'll
want to
second that as well.
Councillor Mace, yeah.
Thank you very much. Councillors, I will call you in alphabetical order. Can you speak clearly and state for, against, abstain? Councillor Bassinger.
For.
Councillor Channer.
Thank you, Chairman. I agree with the overview and scrutiny issue, but I have to go with the monitoring officer's report and the advice of the independent person. So I have to go against. I'm for the Constitution.
Councillor Helm.
I'm afraid I've got to go against the recommendation.
Councillor Jarvis.
Thank you. It's a very difficult decision. I'm actually going to go for the motion. I've listened to all the debate. I'm actually going to go for. I just hope for a better future.
Thank you, Councillor Jarvis. Councillor Keys?
For.
Councillor Mays?
For.
Councillor Nunn?
For.
Councillor Stamp?
For.
Thank you, members. That's 6 for, 2 against, no abstentions. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, that's duly carried that Councillor Morris has not breached the code of conduct. Simon, can we now go
Can
on
you
to
just
the
say
next?
thank you to the committee and councillors, please?
Pardon?
Thank you to the committee and the councillors.
Okay, thank you. Right, we'll move on to the second complaint. Simon, would you like to present the second complaint?
Yes, this is the report of Stuart Jennings, Deputy Monitoring Officer. It's a complaint by a member of the public, Thomas Kelly. I can read that out now if members want.
If you would, please.
Yes. It's to the monitoring officers, dated the 14th of February this year. Dear Sir, formal complaint against Councillor Morris. You will have been aware that I attended full council to put forward 2 questions. This is a complaint based on circumstances arising at that meeting. 1, being accosted by the named councillor after I put forward my questions. 2, the disrespect shown to the chairman. 3, aggressive behaviour to the chairman of a committee, finance, I believe, Councillor Harker. 4, making mobile telephone calls during the meeting. 5, disrespectful wearing of a cap. 6, actions which would bring the council into disrepute had the press been present. Should MDC fail to take punitive action against the named member, then I give notice that the ineffectiveness of procedure policies will be a matter of complaint to the responsible government department. I will also make my views and criticisms made known via local press. Yours faithfully, Thomas Kelly. There was also, and this was mentioned by Mr. Jennings, there was also another member of the public that made a complaint, but that person wished to remain anonymous. Mr. Jennings mentions that in his report at page 44, 1.11, although he says he hasn't taken that particular complaint into account, but he wanted the committee to know that there was a second complaint as well. Members, there it is. I mean, it's not my report. It is Mr. Jennings' report. The matters related to a exchange between the chairman and also Councillor Morris at the end of a meeting in February, the 13th of February. At 1.4, Mr. Jennings interviewed Mr. Kelly, and he explained what he meant by the words accosted. He speaks about, he talks about the disgust that Mr. Kelly talks about, disgust that he felt at what he witnessed. He considered, Mr. Kelly thought that at 1.4 that the behaviour of Councillor Morris showed utter contempt for the council as a regulatory body. Then I think there was a discussion after this report was written, and to be fair to Councillor Morris, there wasn't a lot of time between the writing of this report and seeking Councillor Morris's views. That is true. After this report was written, Mr. Jennings, in my presence, was able to speak to Councillor Morris about the allegations. Nothing that Councillor Morris said changed his view on the report. And so here it is. His conclusion is that 1.14, page 44, that there was a breach of the provision of the Code of Conduct. 3.2, not showing respect, and 3.5, bringing the authority or his office into disrepute. Now, Chairman, do you want me to read the independent officer's view, person's view, or do you want to leave that till later?
We'll do that now, then Councillor Morris can question that as well.
Okay.
Chairman, can I ask that the email's read out again from the complainant, please? It's only a small one, but can we have that before you move on, Mr. Quelch? Is that okay?
I can do that.
Right, Simon?
Yes, I can do that.
Yes, I don't think we heard it all last time, did we?
No, thank you. I didn't. Thank you.
I'm sorry. I read it probably too quickly. Okay, it's to me. It's from Thomas Kelly. It's dated the 14th of, and if members aren't hearing me or thinking that I'm reading too quickly, please stop me. 14th of February 2020. Dear Sir, formal complaint against Malden District Councillor Morris. You will have been aware that I attended full council to put forward 2 questions. This is a complaint based on circumstances arising at that meeting. 1. Being accosted by the name councillor after I have put forward my questions. 2. The disrespect shown to the chairman. 3. Aggressive behaviour to the chairman of a committee, and it's in brackets finance, I believe Councillor Harker, close brackets. 4. Making mobile telephone calls during the meeting. 5. Disrespectful wearing of a cap. 6. Actions which will bring the council into disrepute had press been present. Should MDC fail to take punitive action against the named member, then I give notice that the ineffectiveness of procedure policies will be a matter of complaint to the responsible government department. I will also make my views and criticisms made known via local press. Yours faithfully, Thomas Kelly. He's a resident in Malden.
Chairman, may I declare an interest, actually, but bearing in mind Councillor Morris's questionings of Simon Quelch, I will declare I've known Mr. Kelly a very long time. He was indeed both a town councillor and a Malden district councillor at one time, both, I have to say, I think on our council as a Conservative at one point, but also as an independent. And I do have some dealings with Mr. Kelly because he lives in my Essex County Council division of Malden. And so he does approach me on matters to do with highways, footpaths, parking and other such things to do with matters that a resident would ordinarily come to their elected representative on, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? I will declare that I've known ex-councillor Kelly, Tom Kelly, when I was previously a council about 12 years ago, but I've had no contact with him since. Thank you. Right, I now invite Councillor Morris to ask any questions of clarification that he may have of the monitor officer.
Okay.
Sorry, Chairman. Councillor Nunn and Councillor Stamp had some questions before we move to that point.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see that. Councillor Nunn and Councillor Stamp.
Yeah, that's fine.
Sorry. Stephen Nunn, Councillor Nunn.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Yes, can I too please declare that I am acquainted with Mr. Kelly, non-pecuniary interest as far as that's concerned. I have 2 questions to ask of Mr. Quelch, please. The first question relates to 1.4. Mr. Kelly's use of the word accosted. If you look at the dictionary definition for the word accosted, it means to go up to or to speak to somebody in a threatening way. Now, the monitoring officer has said that's been clarified at 1.4, the use of the word accosted. But unless I'm being particularly thick here. I don't think it has been clarified in 1.4. So my first question is to ask him, where is the clarification, please?
As Councillor Nunn knows, that's not my report. I didn't do the investigation, but at 1.4, Mr. Jennings had spoken to Mr. Kelly and asked him to clarify that very point that you've asked about. And Mr. Kelly said that he was taken aback by the intervention of Councillor Morris, appearing to be aimed at him, in other words, himself, asking his questions and receiving replies. So it appears to me that the reference to the word accosting here is meant by Mr. Kelly to mean that there was obviously some form of belief that Councillor Morris was aiming questions at him in obviously a way he didn't like.
Okay, thank you very much for the clarification on that that particular question. And my second and final question relates to 1.11. Again, you know, it may well be that because my background has been in HR-related investigations, I'm at a loss to know why 1.11 has been included. What we've got here is the investigating officer saying, well, we did get another complaint, but it's anonymous, and so we're not going to investigate that, but we'll just chuck that in the bucket as well. I mean, why is that there?
Well, Councillor Nunn, we can withhold information from you if you want.
I don't want to know about people that aren't complaining.
Well, it was a complaint. It was a complaint. I have the email on file. It was a member of the public who attended the meeting, but he, for his own reasons, it was a he, for his own reasons, did not want his identity to be disclosed. Mr. Jennings has, I mean, he could have not put that in, but it's as a matter of record, that information is there. Mr. Jennings has very fairly says he hasn't based his investigation on that email, but he obviously felt that you as members should know that Mr. Kelly was not alone in his concern. Now, you can dismiss that. That is a matter for you. But without telling you the information, you wouldn't have the right to dismiss it if you wanted to.
Well, I respect your interpretation of that, Mr. Quelch, but I don't even know what the complaint was.
Well,
all I know is someone complained and they didn't want to be named. I don't know what they're complaining about.
Okay. Would you like me to read it without disclosing the name?
Yes.
Okay.
Simon, please.
Shall I do that, Chairman?
Yes, please.
Okay. This is an email dated the 14th of February, 2020. It's to me. It's called Private and Confidential.
Order.
Councillor wrong.
Sorry?
Councillor Morris, why are you point of order?
Because it's got nothing to do with a complaint. You've got an anonymous complaint coming. It could be anyone. It could be vexatious, frivolous, or anything. Let's just get on.
Councillor Nunn has asked for it to be read out. If Councillor Nunn wants to withdraw that request,
it shouldn't be.
Councillor Nunn, what would you like to do?
It has no. It's not got a relevance. It's not part of the complaint.
What would you like to do?
Well, that is my point. You know, I see it as double jeopardy, as I did this morning when we were having a similar discussion. So to put in a report that, oh, by the way, I had another complaint, but they don't want to actually be named and pursue that, I haven't got a clue what it's about. And I think that as a committee, we should discount such inclusions, and we should focus on the evidence that's being presented.
Members, are you happy to nullify this complaint, or what would you like to do?
Chairman, can I make a proposal?
Yes, please, by all means.
Was there another person who said the same thing?
Didn't hear.
Sorry, can I make a proposal that we strike to remove 1.11 off Appendix 2, and it plays no part in our, I mean, I did the same as Councillor Nunn. I've put question mark, stars, irrelevant. So I totally agree with what Councillor Nunn has said. So can I propose, Chairman, that we strike it from the record?
Seconded, Councillor Nunn.
Okay.
Chairman, can I just say something? I mean, I haven't even thought about it like that because I read the last sentence, which made it clear his investigation has been confined to the complaints of Mr. Kelly. So that's all I've looked at in terms of that.
I realise that as well, but people want to bring something into it. So,
Chairman, I don't think that's very fair. People don't want to bring anything into it. We're trying to actually ascertain the facts that is written down in Appendix 2, Chairman.
You have a report in front of you. You've read it. It's discounted at the end of that report.
Exactly.
Now you're questioning it. So it's been discounted. It's been discounted. It's finished.
Yeah, but Chairman, with all due respect, you just tried to diss that by your comment. That's not right.
So, Chairman.
Yes.
The point I was making was that it doesn't need to be in the report. If it's not a formal complaint and we don't know who's complaining or what they're saying and there's no evidence presented, surely in terms of natural justice, you don't produce a report that says, oh, by the way, I've had loads of other people saying the same thing, but I can't tell you who they are. You just don't do that.
Thank you for that, Councillor Nunn. It's been discounted now anyway, and it was in the report. So where do you want to go with this? There was a proposal. I don't know if it was seconded or not.
I'd like to second that we ignore 1.11.
Right, okay. And who has seconded that now?
Chairman, Councillor Stamp proposed it and Councillor Nunn seconded it.
Right, okay then. Are you all happy to go to a vote on that, please?
Yes.
Right, can we go to the vote?
Recorded vote, please.
Yes, please.
To discount the section. Okay,
yes.
Members, I will call you in alphabetical order. Can you please indicate for, against, abstain? Just bear with me for a moment, please. Councillor Bassinger.
For.
Councillor Channer.
Well, Chairman, I wasn't paying any credence or weight to it whatsoever, but to keep everyone happy, I'll say 4. If people want it struck out, I've struck it out immediately, having read the paragraph and the last sentence.
Councillor Helm.
I had also discounted that, then it's in the end of the report, so I'll vote for as well, please.
Councillor Jarvis.
I'm for with no hesitation. I think it is relevant that it was in there and it shouldn't be, because it tends to lend weight to an argument. Whereas if it hadn't been there, it wouldn't have lent any weight. So I don't think it should have been in there. I'm definitely for that it should be struck out, not considered or given any weight whatsoever.
Thank you. Councillor Keys.
Councillor Jarvis has just took the words straight out of my mouth. 4.
Councillor Mays.
4.
Councillor Nunn.
4.
Stamp.
4.
Thank you, members. That's 8 for, none against, no abstention.
Thank you. That's taken out of the report now. Where are we now? Members.
Chairman, we still have some members wishing to speak, please. I don't know if Councillor Stamp has covered all her points. She was due to speak next. Then Councillor Channer and Councillor Peter Stills.
Okay.
No, Chairman. I will reserve the right to come back after the debate, if that's okay. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Anyone else?
Councillor Channer, then Councillor Stills.
Councillor Channer.
Thank you. Question for the monitoring officer, really. I know it's he didn't do the investigation. It's the deputy monitoring officer, but obviously he's presented it and he's here to answer questions. And it's to do with Chairman on the report with the deputy monitoring officer found on page 44, and it relates to point 1.2, and it's the conclusion, Chairman. And it's the last paragraph of that conclusion in 1.12. It says, in the subsequent exchange with the chairman, the assertion by Councillor Morris that the chairman was too old and needed to quit was equally disrespectful and offensive in terms of equalities legislation. However, my question is this. Then it's silent at the end on that, because we do, under the Code of Conduct, have under 3A, I think it's 3A, about really, we have to ensure we're not going against the equalities enactment, obviously because age is a protected characteristic. And so I do ask that question. So the fact is it's raised by the Deputy Monitoring Officer, but then he just says about disrespectful and offensive in terms of the qualities legislation. He makes no reference regarding the Code of Conduct, where I think 3A applies. But also I note that the complainant didn't make reference to that. So should there be any weight applied to the last paragraph of that conclusion that the Deputy Monitoring Officer put in? He's made a comment, having listened to obviously the tape or whatever. So that's my question really. What weight should be applied, bearing in mind the complainant didn't mention it, the Deputy Monitoring Officer who investigated does, and mentions that it's disrespectful and offensive, and then we have a Code of Conduct which mentions 3A about equalities enactment. And I suppose I was a bit surprised that Councillor Morris had said that, because I'm aware of Councillor Morris's, well, in fact, I am aware how he does, how can I put this, stand up for various elements of persons with certain protected characteristics, let's put it that way.
Simon, can you answer that question, please?
Yeah, I think that Mr. Jennings is mentioning it because it goes to the disrespect point. And I think that's how he puts it. To then make the personal remark as to the chairman being too old and needing to quit was equally disrespectful. That's the way he puts it, as well as offending the equalities legislation. I think this point was raised this morning, that unless the particular, I don't think myself there is a breach of that part of the code in relation to the equalities legislation, simply because although the remark was, in Mr. Jennings' view, disrespectful to the chairman, it didn't go towards an action in terms of, say, for example, whether someone did or didn't get a position. It is true to say that Councillor Morris says you're being too old and you need to quit. You could say, you could argue that was in breach of the code, because he was actually saying because of your age you need to stand down from being a chairman, you need to retire from being a chairman on grounds of age. But personally, I don't think you can argue that an action was there for the local authority to actually act contrary to the equalities legislation. So I think it should only go, as Mr. Jennings put it, should only go to the issue of whether there was a failure to show respect.
Thank you for that, Simon. Anybody else?
Thank you.
Nobody else? Right, we now...
Chairman, Councillor Stills would like to ask a question.
Thank you. When I became a councillor in 2006, Mr. Kelly was then a town councillor. He then stopped on the next election. He attended when I was the mayor and also when I was chairman of various committees. As time's gone on, he's got very fiery and very picky on things. To say some object to someone wearing a cap, he could be wearing a cap through religious reasons, medical reasons, or cultural reasons. Also, he very often, he'd like to include blackmail, as he did in his letter. I will report this, I will do that, I will do that. We actually had him at one meeting as a member of the public threatening to go and damage cars that he thought was improperly parked. So his letter of complaint, all right, valid to make a complaint, but he's very much in people's face when he gets something under his skin. So I do not carry any weight with his letter because I found it threatening, objective, and also very typical of his actions nowadays as he's got older. Thank you.
Thank you for that. We've got another one, please. Have we, Berna, have we got another question?
Yeah, Mr. Councillor. Yeah.
Councillor Stamp, I believe.
Councillor Stamp, please.
I think it's Councillor May's burner. I'm going to come in near the end.
Councillor Mays, then, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, from the letter, I was very concerned with the fact, as Councillor Stilts has just picked up, the threatening tone. You know, basically, if we don't do what he wants us to do, then you know, we're going to get reported anyway. I don't know this gentleman, although I have come across his name and I've heard information, but I don't know the gentleman. But I would like to bring you back to, you know, Part G, as I did before, on the European Convention on Human Rights, which was politicians are required to have thick skin. And I think the fact that Councillor Boyce did not further his complaint actually does give quite a lot of weight to that, yeah, he is very well aware that things will be said in the heat of a debate, and it has been extremely lively over those first few months. In fact, the first 12 months, it was very, very lively. So I'm not entirely sure that I also give much weight to this letter from the information that I've also heard today. Thank you.
Councillor Stamp, wasn't it?
Yes, please, Chairman. Yeah, I also totally agree with what the previous councillors have said. Disrespectful wearing a cap. Sorry, you know, it's like saying you're disrespectful. You don't like the colour of my hair. It's totally irrelevant. It doesn't add to anything. And taking mobile telephone calls during the meeting. Now, I think you're going to pull me up and say, well, it's different now, Councillor Stamp. When you attend these meetings online, I've seen the leader, the ex-leader and the ex-chairman being on the phone all the time when they're communicating, to the extent I've had members of the public message me and say, what the heck is going on, Wendy? They're all messaging each other. All I can hear is bing, bing, bing. So we do have to be careful. We're not going to be selective just because it's Councillor Morris. Loads of people. I know he took the call at the meeting, and I totally agree. And I spoke to Councillor Morris, and I think he would admit this, agree to this when I turned around and said, Councillor Morris, I don't agree with that. It's your choice. I can't tell you what to do. But I would never do it, Chairman, but that's me. Showing disrespect to the Chairman, that's a matter of what we spoke about earlier. The Chairman, I've heard the Chairman go back. The Chairman's even told me to be quiet when I've tried to say something, because when I've spoken, when he didn't want me to speak, I could have taken offence at that, but I didn't. Being accosted is boldly and aggressively. I don't remember Councillor Morris moving out of his chair. I'd like to ask Councillor Morris if he did go and accost Mr. Kelly when Councillor Morris is allowed to speak, Chairman.
Okay.
And I think that's all I've got to say at this stage, Chairman. Thank you.
Okay. Well, now go. If everyone's finished.
Councillor Jarvis and then Councillor Nunn, Chairman.
Okay, Councillor Jarvis and Councillor Nunn.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Just a few points, really. I think with regards to the letter and the sort of, well, actually the bullying nature within that letter, use of the word accosted, sort of, which there doesn't seem to be much evidence of what I would consider to be accosting in the light of day. And I think, it cuts nothing with me if somebody says, if you don't do something, I'm going to take it further. I really don't like that. And I think Town Councillor Stilts has summed that up quite well. We shouldn't in any way. That shouldn't influence our decision today. As far as the substance, look, we've spoken earlier about the style of Councillor Morris. Yes, he wears a cap, puts his feet up, maybe takes some calls, uses a megaphone. Look, these are not things I would do. These are not things I would encourage him to do. But I think we heard earlier on that, he has a number of issues that he is keen to draw to the council's attention. And these are extravagant, extrovert ways of dressing or acting, to a degree, are to draw attention to himself. And he would say, I'm sure, to draw attention to issues that he thinks the council needs to be aware of. Now, I'm not saying I agree with them. It's not necessarily a style or a way of operating that I would respect. But I do understand to a degree why he has behaved in that manner. I hope that going forwards, he won't feel there are the same substance reasons underneath that he will necessarily need to act always in that manner. But look, if he wants to wear a cap into council meetings, I don't really have an issue with that. It's not my style, but I think we've got to be very careful if we're adjudicating on everybody's style. Thank you, Chairman.
Anybody else?
Councillor Nunn, Chairman.
Councillor Nunn, please.
Thank you, Chairman. This is sort of partly in the form of a proposition, I suppose, but I agree with Councillor Jarvis that, you know, it's not the way that I would behave, it's not the way that I would dress in the council chamber. But having said that, unless you tell me otherwise, Chair, we do not have a councillor dress code. There might be an individual party dress code, but I don't know of a councillor dress code. And if Councillor Morris wants to wear a cap, then I don't think that in itself is any kind of breach. However, having reflected on this report and listened to Councillor Channer, the one thing that troubles me with this report is the reference to old. And I don't just say that because I'm old. I say it because it is a protected term. And, you know, this morning we were looking at homophobic comments, and comments about age, I think are concerning. So I am worried about that aspect in the context of the breach. Although, interestingly, I just heard that the monitoring officer perhaps isn't, but I am concerned about that.
Anybody else?
I think Councillor misunderstood me. I didn't say I wasn't concerned. I said, Chairman, just for the sake of clarity, that Mr. Jennings seems to be not relating it to the part of the code for equalities, breach of equalities legislation, but more to the point of disrespect. I didn't say I wasn't concerned. I am repeating what Mr. Jennings has said.
Fair dues. Thank you for the clarification.
Anybody else?
Yes, Councillor Stamp, Chairman.
Councillor Stamp.
Just a quick point about the uniform. I don't think it's actually lawful to actually say what people can wear when they attend a council meeting or going into an office. You can have a dress code if your employees wish to sign up to it, but I don't think Councillor Simon Quelch, who's the expert on this, could actually support this. I don't think there is a law that can be adhered to at this council, can it, except for advisory.
Do you want to comment on that, Simon?
Stand the point that Councillor Stamp was making. I'm sorry.
Mating?
I didn't understand the question that Councillor Stamp.
Can you repeat, please, Councillor Stamp?
Is there a law, Simon Quelch, that states that this council, or is there a law that states that you can make people wear a certain dress a certain way? I don't think there is.
No, there isn't. No.
Thank you.
No.
So wearing a hat, or I don't know, wearing knee-length boots or whatever, you can do nothing about.
I think that's correct. There is no dress code that forms a part of the council's conventions. I think that's right, what members have said. There may be group rules, but those are not council rules. So wearing of a cap in itself is not a breach of any convention that the council has.
Thank you.
Has everyone finished now? Anyone else?
That's it for the moment, Chairman.
Right, members, you've jumped the gun. Councillor Morris should have been asked questions for clarification of the monitoring officer, and he wasn't given that opportunity because you went straight into asking questions.
Thank you, Chair.
So, Councillor Morris, would you like to ask questions? And then you can ask questions again after that. Councillor Morris.
Yeah, right. Thank you, Chair. You finally noticed.
No, the councillors jumped over me, and it was gone before I had a chance to bring it on. Okay, I apologise for that.
That's fine. Apology accepted. I would have stuck up for you, but I'm a little bit worried that if I stick up for people and stop them bullying you, that maybe I'll get brought before joint standards. But let's move on. The complaint, 1.2. The complaint was made by a member of the public, Mr. T. Kelly. can I please ask the monitoring officer how long he has known Mr. Kelly and in what professional capacity he has known former Conservative District Councillor Tom Kelly?
I don't know the exact year, but I would have said I first met Tom Kelly in 2002. He was a district councillor.
Is he a Conservative district councillor?
Sorry?
Was he a Conservative district councillor?
I believe he was in the Conservative group, but I'm also aware that he became an independent as well.
Right, so he's a former Conservative district councillor.
Yeah, former district and independent councillor, yes.
Right. Are you aware, because we did have a telephone conversation about this, is he not a serial complainant?
I've never had a complaint. I've never had a complaint from him in relation to anybody. I've had lots of complaints from a few individuals. I could give you the list if you like, but if you would like that list. I don't
want to waste anyone's time. The point I was going to make,
okay,
Mr. Crouch, is that me and you had a conversation where you stated that he was a serial complainant.
No, I've never said
yes, you did. Yes, you did. You told me that he was renowned in the Conservative Party for putting whinges in. Now, whether or not that was to a monitoring officer, to the Conservative group, you told me that he was always having rows and putting complaints in.
No, what I said was, I never said he was a serial complainer, because he's never made a complaint to me. I've never known Tom Kelly.
Told me he was always having rows with people.
Chairman, can I answer the question?
Mr. Morris, you are tending to.
Go on, do it.
Do it. Please.
No, I'm not. I'm asking the question.
Ask a simple question. Don't keep badgering.
So
I'm not badgering. I just want a simple answer. I'm not having him say that I'm lying.
Chairman, I'm trying to answer the question, and every time Councillor Morris interrupts me because I don't give him the answer that he wants. And so I'm trying to give the honest answer, not the answer that he wants. So the answer is, I have never, as a monitoring officer, received a complaint. Or as an employee of Malden District Council, received a complaint from Mr. Kelly. What I said to you on the phone was that I knew Mr. Kelly as a councillor, and he was very forthright in his views and was quite ready. I think my recollection of the telephone conversation I had with you was that he was quite ready to go against the party line. He was quite ready to stand up for what he believed was right. And those are the words I said to you. I never said he was a serial complainer, because I've never had a complaint from him until today.
That was my interpretation of what you said, that he was always having rows, that he was always whinging, that he was always bringing up complaints.
Well, that's
just the fact. Excuse me.
That's quite.
The question
can you let me finish? I'll let you finish. He is a former Tory district councillor that has been wheeled in for political purposes to put this complaint on, to try and put pressure on me because I have exposed the bullying culture at MDC. Let's move on.
Well, can I just say, what you said is a distortion, a complete distortion, Councillor Morris, of our conversation, complete distortion, a misrepresentation in its entirety.
You have your perception of that conversation and I have mine.
Well, let's end that now.
By him, after having put his questions, as we've just heard, accosted. What a word. Accosted. I didn't go after him or anything like that. I heard an absolutely rubbish answer go to that gentleman, and I knew the answer to that gentleman, and I politely put what I believe to be the correct answer in. Yet again, I spoke my truth. Anyone can go back and hear what was said. I was polite. I was respectful, and I thought it was disrespectful that the chairman and the leader would allow such a rubbish answer to be given to him.
Can I just, Chairman? I actually agree with Councillor Morris. I was at that meeting, and I have to say I was surprised personally by the use of the word accosted. I don't recall Councillor Morris doing something that I would describe as accosted. But that was the complaint that was put in, and Mr. Jennings has looked into that and given his understanding of what Mr. Kelly meant by it.
Showing disrespect to the chairman was the next one, and what I would say to that is, I give the respect I get. So if anyone thinks that I was disrespectful to the chairman, I gave the respect back that I was shown by the chairman. And remember, this is a chairman who calls human rights legislation rubbish. That is disrespectful. Aggressive behaviour towards a committee chairman.
I don't think these are questions for me, are they, Chairman? Shall I turn off my?
I thought this was to go through the report.
Councillor Morris, what else do you want to say?
Yeah, it's just to go through the report. So I'm going through the report. Please. So, and Simon is welcome to come in at the appropriate time to put his side. So now we've got aggressive behaviour towards a committee chairman, Councillor Harker. Now, I remember that very, very well. And what was said was that Councillor Harker actually said, I'm too old for this. And I agreed with him. And then he aggressively shouted for me to shut up. I didn't put no complaint in about that because I've got thick skin. Article 10, remember? Yeah, I didn't put no whinging about that. So how was I aggressive to a man that's shouting across the chamber, shut up to me? And that's all on the tape. So he was the one that stated he was too old. I agreed with him and he shouted, shut up to me. So there was no aggression from me whatsoever. Then we've got making mobile telephone calls. I have received text messages from the former leader, Councillor Fluker, whilst we've been in the chamber. That is no law break. That is no heinous crime. The next one, disrespect of wearing a cap. I'm sorry, but how is wearing a cap disrespectful? The background to that is that I attended the council offices, not for any council meeting, but in a private capacity, and I had a small cut on my head from shaving my head, and I put a cap on to cover the cut up. Fluker decided to try and bully me and tell me that I wasn't allowed to wear a cap indoors. I will not be told how to dress. The last person told me how to dress was my mum, and that she don't do that no more, so he don't get the chance to either. Wearing a cap indoors, how pathetic. It should be more about the character of the person rather than the clothes they are wearing. When I joined Malden District Council, I spent money that I didn't have to buy shirts and a suit jacket and stuff like that because I was making an effort. That wasn't good enough. I had the officers request. Councillor Hurd got me down to Costa Coffee and said, you've got to wear a tie. Mate, I've made an effort. I'm making an effort now. I'm in a shirt. I do want to try and get along, but I will not be told how to dress.
Councillor Morris, you're straying from the report again, please.
I'm reading the report. Actually, bring the council into disrepute. What do you mean leeway? You're telling me that I'm straying from the report. I'm reading from the report. Actions which would bring the council into disrepute had the press been present. The press are actually welcome to print or do anything I want. That I have done. I do not believe that I've brought the council into disrepute anywhere near as much as what you, Councillor Helm, Thompson, Hewick,
Are you accusing
and
me of
Fluker
something,
have
Councillor
done
Fluker?
with your
Councillor?
homophobic policy.
So you're accusing me of something, Councillor Morris?
Can we move on?
Fill that
Can
out,
we move
please.
I'm
on?
accusing you of being part of the bullying culture at Malden District Council.
Councillor Morris, you have strayed away from the report there. Sorry to interject, but I am the deputy chair or vice chair of this committee, and I'm afraid
He
you
asked
have.
me a question, I
Yes,
answered it, Councillor.
Councillor Morris, he did, but you have strayed away from that. Can you please carry on when you said about the actions of the press, please? Councillor Helm, I'm sorry if I've interrupted you, but
No, thank you very much for helping me
Right,
out.
so next point. Right, so my next point would be everyone is having a pop at me for telling the truth. Oh, as he stood up. Oh look, he's got a phone call during a meeting. And he's the chairman.
Come on, Councillor Morris, please.
He's the chairman, eh? God, mate. Excuse me, Councillor Helm. Does that make my last one of these accusations about using a mobile telephone? Does that not sort of like put that into a little bit of context, because you've just done it?
I'm sorry, Councillor Morris. I didn't ring
let's
anybody.
carry on.
I didn't text anybody. There was a phone call.
I have been accused. Oh, it doesn't matter, Councillor Helm. You've just used your telephone in a meeting, which is one of the things you guys have tried to hang me for. So let's just move on. Everyone's making a big thing about Bob, about me saying that Bob was too old to do the job. Now, let me just take you back. Before when I tried to informally sort out this bullying culture, I sat down with Bob. We sat in the members' office, members' room, and Bob was watching the Sweeney. So I sat with Bob, and we both watched the Sweeney, and we had a nice old chat. And I said informally to Bob, Bob, you know what's going on. It ain't right. Fluker's bullying Councillor Siddle. Things are not right here.
You're straying away again, Councillor.
No, I'm not. I'm explaining my point. Let me explain my point. I asked Bob if he could resolve it informally to not bring the council into disrepute, to not put out our dirty washing in public. I asked him if he was happy, and he turned to me and he said quite simply, Chrissy, I'm too old. He told me that. Now, there are other councillors, and there are other councillors in this meeting right now that have confirmed that. And one of the councillors, who I won't mention, even though I feel like I should have, because I feel they're not being that fair, actually told me that Bob would not have let this happen 10 years ago, and he is being manipulated by Fluker, and he is diminished because of his age. I'm not having a go at him for being old. I like old people. I'm an old person myself. What I am saying is that he is not the man he was 10 years ago. This would not have happened, and that has been confirmed by senior Conservatives. So I'm not having a go at him for being old. I'm simply pointing out that he is past his best. When you get given an MBE, OBE, whatever it is, that is a polite way of saying you are past it. Now, I'm sorry if my truth offends you.
That's very offensive to a man who's
it's not offensive. It's the truth. It's not offensive. It's the truth. He got booted out of the county council because he was past his best. He's a nice old boy. I actually quite liked him.
Sorry,
and I would like to
Morris,
that he
I
would like to think that it wasn't his age.
About chairman of this council again.
What?
Can you confine yourself to the report and not?
Well, yeah, I'm not being accused of the ageist thing. Being ageist, I'm being honest.
You've dealt with that.
But
you've gone on
Bob,
Bob.
10 years ago, Fluker would not have got away with what he got away with if Bob was 10 years younger. That is something that a Tory councillor has me. Sorry?
The report here has nothing to do with Councillor Fluker. Why are you bringing him into it?
No, the situation is because of Councillor Fluker. I would not have had to bring this up if Councillor Fluker wasn't a homophobic, woman-threatening bully.
Look, we're not doing that. We dealt with it already.
You allowed it. Michael, you allowed it. You supported it.
Report, please.
So Tom Kelly, former Conservative councillor Tom Kelly, who's been put down as a member of the public, is a former Conservative councillor. Yeah, I mean, that'll do me. That'll do me. This is politically motivated. This is done because the dodgy Conservatives have got pooey that I've exposed their bullying. Thank you.
Right, members. Would you like to question Councillor Morris at all on any of this?
Chairman, Councillor Channer has another question, I think, for the monitoring officer.
Councillor Channer, please.
Sorry, Chairman, I forgot to ask this
No, that's
when
fine.
I came on first time. Yes, I'm referring obviously to the report that's before us of the Deputy Monitoring Officer and paragraph 1.5 specifically. And it's in relation to an officer of the council who was present to the meeting where this all occurred, the Strategy, Policy and Communications Manager. It looks like that she was interviewed, or it says spoken, so I don't know if that was a statement or just a mere conversation. It just says the word spoken. And they expressed their views and disgust at horror at witnessing the behaviour of Councillor Morris from early in the meeting. I'm now quoting from the report, and about phone calls and feats on tables and everything. However, she then goes on about...
Carry on, Canna.
Can I continue, Chairman?
Yes, you may.
She then, she said with the subsequent exchange of the chairman, she felt the effect of the behaviour displayed by Councillor Morris was embarrassing for all concerned and totally unprofessional. She then goes on to say, because that's who that position is, Strategy, Policy and Communications Manager, as a female at that time, from her experience in both the private and public sector, she considered that such behaviour was totally unacceptable in the workplace. And I'm just homing in on that point, Chairman, if the monitoring officer can say this, because obviously the workplace is the council, but officers are in the workplace, whereas where this activity was that she is referring to was actually in the chamber. So therefore, was she saying unacceptable in the workplace where her normal environment was, or was she meaning that actually what she witnessed in the chamber, which is not essentially the workplace, it is the chamber of councillors, elected representatives, that she was meaning it was unacceptable to that? Just for clarity, Chairman, because to me there's a difference between the workplace and the council meeting at full council with elected political representatives or otherwise. So I'd just like that distinction to be made clear, because her words were such behaviour was totally unacceptable in the workplace.
I understand that it was an interview, and I understand that trying to read everything in context, that she is saying that from her experience in the workplace, this behaviour in the council chamber would be, quotes, totally unacceptable. In other words, councillors should be, I think the point she's making is councillors should behave in a respectful way, and you would expect them to behave in the council chamber, not in a dissimilar way to colleagues in the workplace. In other words, if this had taken place in the workplace, she is saying this would have been dealt with, this would have been considered, well, I quote the report, totally unacceptable. I think that's what's happening. She's making a comparison.
This answered your question, Councillor Channer.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Yes, Chairman, Councillor Jarvis and then Councillor Stamp.
Councillor Jarvis, please. Councillor Jarvis, please.
Yeah, sorry, thanks, Chairman. Just finding the buttons. Yeah, I think just 3 points. The first point is just with regards to the too old statement, which I think other councillors have said is probably one of the more serious, potential serious issues. I think it should just be put into context. I do recall the comment. It wasn't delivered, I didn't feel, in an aggressive way. I'm not saying it's a good thing to have said, but it wasn't delivered in an aggressive way. And I think perhaps in some mitigation as well, I have heard Councillor Bob Boyce say, I'm too old for this job. So, look, I'm not saying it was a good comment to make, a clever comment to make, but Councillor Bob Boyce has made that remark sort of himself. And so I don't think it was delivered in an aggressive way, and I think those are sort of mitigating circumstances for making that remark. I think we've talked a lot about the dress code. Look, we've all said it's not the norm necessarily. It's not what most councillors do. But with regards to how you dress in the council, you know, look, there don't seem to be any rules about it. And I think we've also heard that Councillor Morris feels he has some points to deliver. He wants to draw attention to himself, for he would say, and there is some justification for that, to draw attention, a number of issues, to draw those to the attention of the greater council. So look, you know, there is an argument that was the greater good that he was trying to deliver. And I think the only other point I'd like to make, Chairman, is I know that Councillor Morris has said on a number of occasions here that that's the Conservative Party, the Conservatives. I'm a Conservative councillor. I think there are some very good Conservative councillors. I don't think all of them have behaved very well. I think that's all coming to light. I think some of them should be ashamed of themselves. But I think I would just say, you know, would just caution him, please, don't put everybody into that pot. Not all Conservative councillors are like that. Not all people who believe in Conservative values are like that. And I'd like him to think that going forwards, he will be able to work with people. And if they happen to be Conservative councillors, he would be willing to work with them if they can demonstrate good qualities, which I know some of them do have. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Anybody else?
Councillor Stamp and then Councillor Keys, Chairman.
Councillor Stamp, please.
Yeah, well said again, Councillor Jarvis. That's excellent. I totally support you 100%. Voice of reason. Can I actually ask the monitoring officer in regards to Councillor Channer's comment, 1.5, was everybody interviewed following this meeting that was a member, an officer, or was it just the policy communications manager? And I'm sorry if I've missed it, but I think there was more than the policy and communications manager at this meeting. So what does this go to? I'm just worried that this has gone to bias. Did they interview or speak to other people and nobody else wanted to speak? Just for clarity, Chairman, please.
I don't know, Chairman, the extent of Mr. Jennings' investigation, but if he'd have interviewed others, then I'm sure he would have included that in his report. He spoke to me at 1.5, but that was in relation to, in effect, the instructions that I gave him to carry out the report, to do the investigation. So obviously I have to give him the bare bones of what the case is about, as I do with any person that I ask to do an investigation. I don't think he spoke to anyone else other than the council's strategy, policy and communications manager.
Thank you, Chairman. I would ask that question, follow-up question to that, then why not? If you're carrying out an investigation and you want it to be full, open and transparent, why do you not want to speak to everybody that was actually at that meeting at officer level or whatever, Chairman? It's just a point that's sprung to my mind. We can't be selective. We're all asking questions. It has to be fair. And I don't think by putting one person, I'm glad Councillor Channer knows who the person they're speaking about, because I didn't. But it really does need to be open and fair.
Well, I'm sorry, Councillor Stamp, that you think the investigation was unfair. You must judge that.
Please don't put words in my mouth. Please don't put words in my mouth. Sorry to interrupt, Chairman, and sorry to interrupt you, Mr. Quelch. It was that point I was referring to. Yeah, well, is that clear?
Well, OK, I thought you were saying because of that the investigation was unfair because other people weren't investigated, weren't interviewed. I thought that's what you were saying.
No, sorry, and I do apologise if you've misconstrued, but I think you went from A to Z there instead of from A to B. OK,
perhaps you could clarify then, because I'm sorry, I don't want to answer the wrong question. I'm sorry.
OK, all right, hang on. I'll put my camera on. My question was, did what's his name, Mr. Jennings, ask everybody who was present at that council meeting? And if not, why not? Because to me, if you're going to speak to one officer who was there, you should speak all of them that were there for a balanced, full report. I'm not saying what you said, that I've accused anybody of anything. So can we actually just take this down a little bit? But that was my main point. From my point of view, you would interview everybody if you're carrying out an investigation.
Well, I think that's a matter for you to decide then, if you think that the investigation wasn't complete enough. Mr. Jennings obviously considered that it was, and that he didn't need to. He had the thing is, a point here is that he listened to the audio. He wasn't present at the meeting, but he listened to the audio. So he actually had the whole of the meeting and listened very carefully to it. And I think he mentions that. He describes some of the things that he heard on the audio. So
Yes.
When you've heard the audio of something, and you've interviewed the complainant, that was Mr. Kelly. You've then interviewed an officer that was at the meeting to obviously confirm whether your understanding of the audio is correct. Then, personally, I don't think Mr. Jennings' investigation is incomplete. I think the really, really important thing was listening to the audio and hearing himself what was said, when it was said, and how it was said.
Chairman, I think Simon Quatch and I are going to slightly disagree on that point. I won't labour it too much further, but that's like saying I've got the first answer I want to conduct the report. I'm not going to go any further. Thank you.
Chairman, I think that's very fair of Councillor Stamp to make that. I think that's very unfair.
I don't, and I did say, you know, I wasn't being difficult. I just don't think that's right.
We just leave it at that and carry on, please, if possible. We've had a lot of arguments and to's and fro's, and we want to get to a conclusion of this meeting if we possibly can. It's now nearly 4 o'clock.
Chairman, we have Councillor Keys next, and then Councillor Morris would like to come back on some issues.
Yes, by all means. Councillor Keys first, and Councillor Morris can come back by all means. Councillor Keys.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, Councillor Keys. Carry on.
Can you see me?
Yes, I can see you now.
Yes. I'm just inquiring. Councillor Morris said that Mr. Kelly was a Conservative councillor and also an independent. Was he an independent councillor longer than a Conservative, or vice versa? I'm just inquisitive because I don't know Mr. Kelly.
Can someone answer the question, please, Simon? And do you know the answer to that question?
I'm just inquisitive. I wonder if he was one longer than the other. I don't know. I'm just questioning this.
Simon, you probably don't know then, do you?
I'm sorry, I don't know the answer to that. I'm sorry.
Okay.
That's all right. I just wondered what it was. But okay, thank you for letting me speak. Thank you.
That's all right. Just for information of the committee, I was leader of the Malden Independent Democratic Alliance for 4 years, and that was regarded as independent. I've been a Conservative councillor, and now I'm a Conservative non-aligned, and shortly I'll be something else. So thank you very much. Just let you know where I come from. Thank you. Councillor Morris.
Shortly you'll be something else. That's a bit cryptic, Michael. I'd just like to come back to the officer, Georgina Button. I do believe that the whole thing was very narrow. The investigation was very narrow. You asked, I'd like to just say that Stuart Jennings isn't present to answer any of the questions when he should be, after I requested that all people be available to answer questions, because obviously we'd be able to get more concise answers. But Georgina Button, the communications officer, that said, what was it, disgust, horror and disgust. Well, I would wonder how she would view the homophobic threats to women that has been in that chamber, whether or not, you know,
We're talking about you, councillor, not anybody.
Sorry, Michael?
We're talking about you, not anybody else.
No, we're talking about that she said she felt horror and disgust, and I'm simply putting it into a context. What I've done is nowhere near as bad as what Fluke has done, which she's been sitting in and is fully aware of. So you know, and I want to point out that it was a very narrow investigation, and no one else was asked. Stuart Jennings got the statement that he wanted, and then decided not to bother getting any others. And quite a lot of that meeting was put on my YouTube. And if you guys want to see what other people think about that, you've got some other people saying, well done, Chrissy, because believe it or not, you guys are in an echo chamber, and you've got very antiquated views, some of you. And we need to appeal to the public. We need to be seen to be honest and appeal to the public and speak in layman's terms a little bit more to encourage people to get involved in the political system and forward their community. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Christy Morris. Thank you very much. Councillor Morris, be correct. Right, members.
It's all right. I prefer to be. That's all right, Michael. I prefer to be called Chrissy than councillor.
Okay. Thank you for that. Members, I'm going to move on now. In accordance with procedure for complaints determination point 8, I will now call on the committee to determine if there has been a breach of code of conduct. Please use the chat function to indicate if you wish to speak. Berna, can you tell me if anyone wants to speak?
No, not at the moment, Chairman.
Nobody at all?
No.
So do members think Councillor Morris has breached the code of conduct? Does anyone want to speak?
Sorry, Chairman. There's no Councillor Jarvis is asking if there's a proposal on the table for this second matter, and I haven't heard a proposal as yet.
No, I haven't. That's what I'm waiting for. Is there a proposal, please?
Councillor Mays, I think, would like to put forward a proposal.
Councillor Mays, please. Councillor Mays.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Having listened to everything and from personal experience of some of these types of situations, I honestly cannot see that there is any evidence to support the 5 complaints that are listed, and therefore I do not. I want to propose that that there has been no breach of any of the code of conduct.
Okay, have we got a seconder for that?
I'm happy to second that.
Okay. Anyone want to make a discussion on that? No discussion? Right.
Yes, please, Chairman. Can I ask for a proviso or something? And two more minutes.
Okay.
I think. Thank you, Chairman. I appreciate that. The only concern I've got, and I know Councillor Morris did explain when he used the word that Councillor Boyce was old or too old. I'm the same as Councillor Nunn, and I can remember sitting in the chamber when Councillor Morris, because he sits behind me, said that, and I did gasp audibly. So depending on how the vote goes, because we don't know how it's going to go, Chairman, could we suggest something for all councillors or Councillor Morris, that we have as a council a massive diversity training for everybody that can benefit this council to go forward? I don't know if that can be put on as an amendment. If it's planning, Chairman, I'd say put it as a condition. Simon Quelch might have to help me to put that one in, but I really do feel we need to have more diversity training, which one I think might help Councillor Morris as well. He may not agree with me, but that's my point of view.
Let us deal with the first bit, and then I'll have a vote on whether everyone should have diversity training.
Sorry, Chairman. Sorry, Councillor Jarvis would like to just make a point.
Councillor Jarvis.
Councillor
Jarvis.
Yeah, thanks, Chairman. Yeah, I take the point Wendy Stamps, Councillor Stamps mentioning there. I think that's a good idea, but you know, I think the proposal on the table is, you know, has been discussed. None of us think it was necessarily a sensible thing to say to Councillor Boyce. I don't think anyone's thinking it was necessarily sensible. But as I have said already, I don't think it was delivered in an aggressive manner. And it's only a comment that Councillor Boyce had made himself. So it's a fine judge thing. I think it was an ill-judged comment, but I don't think I would find that he brought the council into disrepute because he'd said it, which I think is what's before us. And we've discussed in detail about dress codes and all of the other points that are on there. And we might not agree with the way that Councillor Morris dresses, but I don't think again there's been any breach. And I think that's really the issue here. None of us, or most of us, don't necessarily have the same style that Councillor Morris has, and I doubt very much whether he will immediately adopt the style of others. But the fact is, we're here to judge in a way whether he's behaved in a way, whether he's performed in a way that has brought the council into some form of disrepute. And I just, in terms of, obviously, I've seconded the proposal. I don't believe that is. I don't believe that's the case. Of course, I hope he takes all of the comments that have been given by many councillors today to him. I hope he takes those on board so that he can be, as I've said already today, he can be more effective. We can be a more effective council. But I think in terms of adjudicating in any way on his actions in terms of bringing the council into disrepute, although I don't agree with what he's done in some cases, we're asked whether he's brought the council into disrepute. I don't believe that's the case. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay. Is there anyone else who wants to comment?
Councillor Channer, Chairman.
Councillor Channer, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I heard what Councillor Jarvis said, Councillor Stamp and Councillor Nunn regarding the comment regarding Councillor Boyce, and that's the one I have real issue with in the chamber, saying you're too old, you need to quit. It is a protected characteristic. As Councillor Nunn said, he's old. Councillor Morris has identified his old. I'm old, and I have more than one protected characteristic, and I do think we need to be mindful of that. And the fact that Councillor Boyce might have said something in a private conversation to Councillor Morris, I do respect that and hear that. However, this happened in the chamber. The comment was made. Councillor Stamp's quite right. She did audibly gasp. She looked actually quite shocked. From where I'm sitting, I could see her. And what I would say is members of the public would not appreciate about that private conversation Councillor Morris referred to. They would merely hear Councillor Morris saying in the chamber to the chairman, you're too old, you need to quit. And therefore, I think actually the word, and Simon Quelch answered that question. It doesn't go against 3A of the Code of Conduct, that's quite clear. However, the issue of disrespect, one would perhaps have to say that could be very much interpreted as a matter of disrespect regarding the chairman, highlighting his age and, telling him really he's too old and needed to quit. And that's what I would have to say on that, Chairman.
Okay, we've got a proposition on the table put forward by, can you remind me?
Councillor Mays, Chairman.
And what was that proposition?
That there was no breach of the code in all 5 areas, and it was seconded by Councillor Jarvis.
Okay, do you want a recorded vote, everybody?
Yes.
Yes, please.
Can we go to the
yes,
vote?
Please.
Yes, please. Chairman, can I just ask, can we not do anything about the protected characteristic though? Because Councillor Channer and myself, and I know Councillor Jarvis said what he had to say, but I'm totally supportive of most of the motion, but I'm really struggling, Chairman. I cannot vote on a motion that we're going to say protected characteristic isn't taken into account. Can we ask Simon Quelch, can that motion be changed?
You can make a counter proposal.
You have a motion on the table that has been seconded, and that includes everything. In other words, everything that Stuart Jennings has put in his report, including Councillor Stamp, what you just mentioned about the you're too old comment. That is all included in there being no disrespect. So you can, in a way, you can't amend it. There either was disrespect or there wasn't. Now, you can make it clear there was disrespect in relation to the too old, but it's still disrespect. You can make it clear that all the other aspects, like the wearing of the cap, the telephone calls, the alleged accosting, you can make it clear that that is not a part of your decision. But at the moment, the motion stands that the statement "you're too old, you have to quit" is not disrespect. That's the effect of the motion as it stands.
Councillor Stamp, would you like to make a counter proposal?
Well, I don't.
No,
I think
I
it's
can't,
that one, Chairman.
I
You
can't,
have to move
Chairman.
that one.
Not allowed to, Chairman.
Okay, rightio, we'll carry on. Let's take the vote, recorded vote, please.
Can I just check if Councillor Morris wanted to come back on something there?
Want to come back on something, Councillor Morris?
Thank you, Chair. Just to reiterate, I wasn't having a go at the guy's age. I was having a go that he's, well, I wasn't having a go. I was pointing out the truth that he is not the man he was. And 10 years ago, he would not have allowed it to happen. There are councillors that have known Bob Boyce for years that agree with that. I was not having a go at his age. I was having a go at his diminished mental state, because he's not the man he was, and he allowed, as chairman, he allowed the bullying culture to flourish and actually encourage it. I'm not having a go.
Report.
Thank you.
Right.
Chairman, does the committee wish for Councillor Mays to repeat her proposal just one time before we go to vote, or are we okay?
Councillor Mays, will you repeat it just for the benefit of everybody, please? Councillor Mays.
Yes, sorry, Mr. Chairman, I had a slight problem with unmuting myself. The proposal is that Councillor Morris has not breached the code of conduct based on the evidence that has been presented in this particular instance. Thank you.
Members, I will call you alphabetically as normal. Can you please state clearly for, against, abstain? Councillor Bassinger.
If Councillor Boyce had made a complaint, it would be different, but I'm voting for.
Yeah.
Councillor Channer.
Against.
Thank you. I'm afraid I have to go against. I hear what's been said, but I am looking at the report and the views regarding the old and the quit and the protected characteristic regardless. And now Councillor Morris, to me, mentioning mental health or his mental stuff, that's why I'm having to vote against, I'm afraid now.
Thank you. Councillor Helm.
I happen to agree with Councillor Channer. I'll vote against.
Councillor Jarvis.
Listen to the debate. I'm obviously seconding the proposal.
Councillor Keys.
I've also listened to the debate and I'm for as well. Thank you.
Councillor Mays.
For.
Councillor Nunn.
Well, I too am very concerned about this age issue, but on balance for.
That was for Councillor Nunn, yes. Councillor Stamp.
Ditto with Councillor Nunn. I am still very concerned about it, but because we can't change the motion, it's too late. Thank you.
Thank you, members. That's 6 for, 2 against, no abstentions. Thank you,
Thank
Chairman.
you very much for that, Berna. Councillor Morris, you have not breached any code of conduct.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, could I come back after
Yes.
Councillor Morris?
Yes, you may.
I do think it is very, very important that the one thing that we do learn from this is that we need more diversity training. I will reiterate both what Councillor Stamp and Councillor Jarvis and Councillor Channer have actually put forward about protected characteristics. We had the same issue this morning, and I think it is absolutely imperative that we do take this forward as a matter of priority. Thank you.
Simon,
Yes,
can we
please.
arrange, Councillor, can we arrange training if possible for every member? I know Councillor Fluker has already done diversity training.
Didn't work for him, though, did it?
Well, I think that's a matter that needs to be taken up with the leader. I don't think it's so much for officers to do. I think it's a matter for the leader to look at the training issues of members. So maybe members should be speaking to the leader and dealing with that issue. Obviously, then officers can be given an instruction if to go out and try and find a trainer to give training on that particular issue.
Maybe someone make a motion to council doing that.
Yeah, Chairman, we can do that. But even if the other councillors, it doesn't need to go to full council. You as the chairman, if we can't do it now because it's not on our agenda. But at the next meeting, even if we have a meeting without actually hearing any complaints, we could set the terms of reference, we could identify training needs, and then we could put that to council so we can actually do it professionally to actually move this council forward in a professional manner rather than I don't mean rather than unprofessional, but you know what I mean. So it's actually controlled and measured, Chairman. We could do that.
Thank you, Councillor Stamp, for that. Did you want to say something, Councillor Morris?
Yes, please, mate. You know me, I always want to say something.
Yeah, but keep it a bit short, please.
Yeah, I'll keep it short as I can. Guys, thank you ever so much. We've come to the right decisions. Things have worked, as they should have done. The one thing I'd say about the diversity training is you cannot diversify the truth. If it's the truth, it can't be diversified. But every day is a school day. You can learn something from everyone, and I hope everyone has learned. What I would like to say is that moving forward, I hope that everyone can work together for the benefit of the district. And if I'm given nothing to expose, I won't be troubling anyone. I won't be bringing anything up. It's just that what I saw, I found had to be tackled, and I tackled it. And we will be a stronger council for it. Okay. So thank you very much, members. Let's hopefully all move forward. I hope to work well with everyone, even though I'm not on no committees or working groups. And thank you very much.
Thank you for that, Councillor Morris. Bernard, did you want to say something? You're flashing.
Oh, apologies. No. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Is there any pardon?
See you later, guys. Cheerio. I think he said cheerio.
Yeah. If there's no further items to discuss, I close the meeting at 16:01. Thank you, members.